Let's get peppy. Welcome to PEP 225. That's PEP or Planet Extra podcast. I am Chad Chadello, a host of Planet America on ABC Australia, and this is an official podcast of the ABC. So say hi to the ombudsman for me. On PEP, we cover all the stuff that's too nerdy for TV. If you're listening, you can find us on YouTube at the PEP with Chaz and Dr. Dave channel. You can also see highlights on the PEP Clips YouTube channel. We're on Facebook at the Chaz from Planet America channel. You also find timestamps and show notes in our blurbs, and if you leave a comment under our current episode video, we are likely to see it. You can also tweet us or blue sky us. That's PEPCHASDADVE. That's at PepChaz Dr. Dave. If you want to chat to some fellow peppers, you can join our Discord server. It's on the screen now or in the blurb of the podcast. If you want to contact me or Lockie the Lucky privately, why not email us? That address is producer@pepthepodcast.com. The address again is producer@pepthepodcast.com. And do not forget to subscribe for all that peppy goodness. It all helps. And we are recording this at 1:42 p.m. on the Thursday. I am about 10 hours behind that in my reading. That's Sydney time. New York time would be 11:42 a.m. PM on Wednesday. Thank you. But for now, let's turn to the timekeeper on this show, a man who will never raise the stakes on inconsequential views. It is Dr. Pepper himself, Dr. David Smith. Hello, Dave.
Hello, I am Dr. David Smith. I'm an associate professor at the United States Studies Centre at the University of Sydney. However, I do not speak for either of those institutions, with one exception, which is when I'm correcting Chaz on American time. Then I speak with the full authority of the United States Studies Centre at the University of Sydney.
That could have been the Chancellor himself correcting me.
Could have been.
Dave, what are you grateful for?
I am grateful for our great friend and co-host, Bill Wyman.
Ah, yes.
I'm not going to call him a friend of the pod because that's one of the things he explicitly advises against in his just published guide to podcasting called Why I Hate Your Podcast.
He's been talking about this for years.
We have put a link to this in the homework. It's great. It's from memory, I think about 22 points about things that really irritate him about podcasts. Now,
is it just a subtweet of us?
Well, I asked him about that with earlier versions. I don't think it is because at the bottom of it, there's a picture of him podcasting on PEP.
Okay.
So I assume he at least finds PEP somewhat tolerable. But the great thing about this is Bill has this very deep and long background in broadcasting.
He does.
And he really makes the point. Every one of these minor irritations is related to a much bigger vision and understanding that he has as a broadcaster of how to think about your relationship with your audience. And most of these problems with podcasting come from people not really being clear on what their relationship with their audience is. And I think that Bill is absolutely right that podcasting is in many ways a continuation of radio as a medium. And it should take advantage of the things that radio does really well, which, as Bill says, is creating a sense of intimacy. I was thinking that even though so much podcasting is now watched by people, and I was reading the other week that something like 70% of people now who consume podcasts watch them, and YouTube claims that more than 1 billion people watched podcasts on YouTube last month or something like that.
Yeah,
so clearly
they watch PEP.
Watching podcasts is a thing, but it is not like watching television.
No.
It's like watching radio.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been some radio people have had cameras in their studios for years.
I used to watch radio.
Yeah. So even though it's, for now, for some people, it's a visual medium, it is still basically radio. Like when you watch PEP, every visual cue is telling you you're in a small room with a small number of people. It's not like TV where the camera moves around and it's creating this whole visual experience.
And functionally, sorry to interrupt, functionally podcasting, when you watch podcasts,
yes,
you do the same things as you do with radio.
Yes.
In that with TV, traditionally you sit there and you pay attention to the TV.
Yes.
It's the center of the room. People are focusing on that. With radio, you'll be doing other stuff while the radio's on. And when you got podcasts, at least speaking for myself, I'll be working while I have something in the corner of my computer screen.
Yes.
Whether it be sport or a podcast or some comedy or whatever, and you dip in and dip out with attention. You don't give it your full attention. I mean,
No.
I'm sure all the Peppers give us their full attention. For the very rare the ones who don't, that's what happens with radio.
Yes.
That's how radio works.
Yeah. Anyway, so the risk of breaking another one of Bill's rules, which is don't talk about the fact that you're on a podcast all the time. I do want to recommend this, especially for anybody who is interested in the podcasting arts. And certainly I know media and communication students now, many of them, this is where they want to end up. I would really, really recommend reading this. Basically, these lessons from a broadcast veteran about how to make your podcast better. I will reread and reabsorb some of those lessons. And I want to remind everyone that even though Chaz is a TV veteran, he cut his teeth at Triple M.
That's true.
The
I started in
radio there is.
It's true. I spent, 4 years doing radio before I had a real job on TV. So, that's where I cut my teeth. That's where I learned my craft. In fact, all those chaser style zany stunts I used to do on TV, I did a lot of them on radio first. Like I was doing all that stuff on radio originally. I'm going to read that.
Yep.
And I'm going to come back next week with a lesson from Bill. It'd probably be my grateful. We'll see. My grateful, I was sent a Facebook thread the other day from one of my many Western Bulldogs chat groups.
Okay.
There are very many of them. And it was a thread from the Australian 90s Noughts Nostalgia Facebook page. And the thread says, I swear Rattus was based on Chaz Licciardello from Chaser's War and everything, right down to the voice and mannerisms. And they've got a photo of me next to a photo of Rattus. We're talking Rattus from the Ferals. For those who aren't in their late 30s, early 40s from Australia, the Ferals was a kids show in the mid-90s with a bunch of puppets. Their leader was Rattus the punk rat. I have to say, I love this. I love this whole thread. I love this idea. I love everything about this. Rattus was a shitload cooler than I am. I'll tell you that right now. I must admit, I don't see the comparison. What have we got here? Yes. Someone said, can't wait to hear about this on PEP. What are you grateful for, Dr. Dave? Fuck, I'm grateful for this Facebook page comparing Chaz to a beloved Australian punk rodent. Well, I got there before you did, Dave. I don't see the comparison myself between me and Rattus, but I want it to be true. I really genuinely do.
Let's just say it is true. Yeah. Do not, under any circumstances, look up the years that the Ferals was on and the years that Chaser was on.
A lot of people have made that point.
Oh, why? Where's your sense of childlike wonder?
Yeah, look, I gotta say, let's just pretend I did mold myself on Rattus rather than the other way around. It's certainly a lot more fun to think I am Rattus than what I usually get.
What do you usually get?
I usually get that I sound exactly like Dylan Alcott or Daniel Ricciardo.
Oh.
That's what I usually get. And if you watch them on YouTube, you'll see it.
Okay.
I definitely see both of them, but I don't see the Rattus comparison. I did go hunting for some clips of Rattus, so Peppers can judge for themselves, though. See if you can hear a similarity. This was the longest excerpt from Rattus that I could find on YouTube.
Baron, I'll do this slowly. Try to stay with me. Someone's moving into the house, right?
Yeah.
Now, our shed's part of the house, right?
Yeah.
So, don't you think the new owner might just have the idea that our shed belongs to them? Why do I bother?
What do you reckon, Dave? Am I giving you Rattus vibes?
Look, I think Rattus looks like he sleeps for about 9 hours a day.
Yeah.
Minimum. I would say is the big difference.
I'll tell you what's a bit weird about this. I know Rattus.
You know him.
Like not the puppet. I know the person behind Rattus. The voice you're hearing is not me. It's David Collins from the Umbilical Brothers. That's the guy with the hair.
Right.
The David with the hair who's not Dr. Dave. That's Rattus. And I was in year 12 when this came out. So I was probably, if I had modelled my entire life on and shtick on Rattus, that would have been kind of weird for 17-year-olds. Oh yeah, this puppet rat is who I'm going to be. So that was not me. But look, I did love the hell out of that thread. That is when the internet is at its best, in my view, when two degraders are combined together, me and Rattus, in the one thread. And look, I was grateful for it. Thank you, guys. That was good. Now we got a bit of correspondence, which I'm going to get through today.
Okay.
I'm gonna spread them out. We got way too many updates. So I'm probably not going to get through them all, but there's one big topic. Everyone knows what it is, and then there's a lot of updates. But there is a couple of correspondences at the top I want to ask you.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, is there a chance? This is from Cydia. Is there a chance we could get an opinion from Chaz and Dr. Dave about South Park and how they seem to be the last media to stand up to Trump? Got any thoughts on that, Dave? Have you seen the two?
I have not seen the 2 episodes.
That's okay, but do you have thoughts about it anyway?
South Park has always had this pretty consistent political brand ever since it's been going. Yep. Kind of libertarian flavored, although they are not unwilling to criticize libertarianism either.
Oh no, they criticize it anyway.
One of their earliest episodes was taking the piss out of someone who loved Ayn Rand. I don't know if you remember that, the bookmobile guy. Yeah, they always seem to have their strongest takes on whoever is in power at the time. That, I think, is one of the things that's remained fairly consistent throughout South Park.
It's a good observation, yeah.
And whatever they think is the ruling political culture, that's what they're going after.
They're contrarians.
Yeah. There is a famous quote about, like, I hate conservatives, but I really fucking hate liberals. That was that was from about 20 years ago. Yeah. And certainly I think they often felt like they were in opposition to the prevailing views in the entertainment industry. They are one of the shows that is not unionized, that is, doesn't have any involvement from the Writers Guild or anything like that. But certainly what they're doing with Trump now seems pretty consistent with their politics.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand you can't say too much more than that, given
that I haven't seen them.
Yeah, but I have.
Yes.
Look, I don't feel there's a shortage of media types standing up to Trump.
No.
The suggestion that they're the last ones. I feel that there is a shortage of media types standing up to Trump effectively, which is very different.
Yes.
I think that's what South Park does better than most. I think they are disarming to Trump supporters, because although I suspect the South Park guys are actually pretty angry about Trump right now, because their politics is not that different to mine, and I'm quite angry, they don't act like it. They act like they couldn't give a toss.
Yes.
And they just find his actions funny and ridiculous. That's what they act like. And from a mockery point of view, that's always the most effective kind of mockery.
Yes.
When you don't care. That's schoolyard mockery. It makes a subject seem small as opposed to big and frightening, which is what most of the mockery out there at the moment feels like. The classic response to a Trump critique is to laugh at how triggered that person was. South Park don't seem triggered.
No.
You can't laugh at them seeming triggered. On that note, I thought EP 2 was much more effective satire than EP 1, for those who have watched both. They really, I thought, skewered edgelord podcasters extremely well. And ICE, I thought they did pretty well as well, in a way that showed absolutely no respect for either. It was good mockery. Although, if I'm being honest, as someone who's a bit of a South Park fan, I think they've lost a bit in recent years when it comes to comedy. I think they used to be funnier.
I haven't watched it since 2009.
Fair enough. I thought EP 1 in particular this season felt very derivative of their old stuff. I felt like I'd seen most of the parts of EP 1 before in other episodes. EP 2 felt a bit fresher, but I feel like they're turning more into a political satire show than a comedy show, which is what they once were. And that's okay if that's what they want to do. So if that's what they want to talk about. Like, I sort of feel people are loving it. I feel like when you're critiquing TV shows, you shouldn't critique, and I say this as a TV maker, you shouldn't critique them on your terms, what you wish they were doing. You should critique them on their terms. What are they trying to do? Do they pull it off? And I think that in this case, I think what South Park are trying to do, they're doing pretty well. They're trying to beat political satire, and it's pretty good.
Yes.
I thought it was weird that EP 2 didn't have an ending. It just sort of ended in the middle of nothing, but let's just leave that aside. But the answer to your question, Cydia, I find unsurprising that South Park is standing out in their response to Trump, because they're moderate libertarians, and moderate libertarians like me have an easier time criticizing Trump because he is the direct opposite of all our viewpoints. There's no overlap whatsoever. And so there's no awkwardness in the critiques. There's no hypocrisy. There's no easy replies from the MAGAs going, what about this? What about that? Also, in the current world of nihilism and cynicism that people love trolling sincerity so much. And conscientiousness so much. There is none of that in South Park. It's just as nihilistic and just as cynical as the people it's critiquing, which
That's right.
I think disarms them a lot.
Yes.
They can't go to the well of auto response.
Just a bit of history for our younger listeners / viewers. Like 25 years ago, there was an entire group of people online who would refer to themselves as South Park conservatives. Do you remember them?
I do remember them.
Yeah, they were really excited about the fact that there was an edgy cartoon whose political values they, in many cases, mistakenly believed kind of aligned with theirs.
Yeah.
A bit. But I think that strand kind of disappeared out of existence once they watched it that's a bit more.
That's the other element of it, that a lot of Trump supporters do like South Park. And that makes it harder for them to just dismiss South Park as not mattering, which I think also makes the mockery more effective.
Yes.
So there's some random thoughts for you there, Sidia. Next one, this is for you, Dave.
Yes.
Jack asks, can you guys please cover the Armenia and Azerbaijan peace deal done by Trump? I'm guessing there's all kinds of corruption and geopolitics at play that's not been reported on. Now, Jack, when I say that's for Dave, you didn't ask for Dave to do that, but you know what? It's going to be for Dave. Because I literally don't know the first thing about this story. So
yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So this peace deal was announced last week. Like a lot of the peace deals and other deals that have been announced, it is so far preliminary, but this one I think has a chance of actually turning into something. So let's have a start by looking at the epic handshake that took place between the Azerbaijani president. I really mean epic. Yeah. So that on the left is Ilham Aliyev, the president of Azerbaijan. Yeah. His father was also president of Azerbaijan. Okay. That in the middle is Donald Trump doing his best WWE face. And on the right there, that is Nikol Pashinyan, the president of Armenia. Now,
I'm really glad that's the WWE face of Trump because I was thinking a different face. Go on, Dave.
Okay, so what is this a peace deal over?
Yes.
Well, this is related to decades of conflict that has kept dying down and then flaring up and then flaring up again. So predominantly it's been over this region, Nagorno-Karabakh, which for a long time was a predominantly Armenian region within Azerbaijan. So these are two former Soviet republics. When the Soviet Union broke up in 1991, so they both formally became independent in 1992, there was immediate war over this region. And this was a problem that was found in many of these former Soviet republics where you had these national minorities within what suddenly became other people's homelands. And so this led to what was commonly known as the double minority problem, or why should I be a minority in your country when you could be a minority in mine?
Right.
So all of these Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh didn't want to be a minority in Azerbaijan. They wanted their own Armenian enclave within Azerbaijan. So that war initially finished in 1994 with a de facto Armenian republic in Azerbaijan. Now it's time to explain the geopolitical complications, and they do get complicated. Okay. Let me warn you. For a start, let's look at Iran. Now, Iran borders Azerbaijan. Yep. There are a lot of Azerbaijani people living in Iran.
Makes sense.
Azerbaijan, when it became independent, was one of the other few Shia Muslim majority countries in the world. So you might think they'd be friends, right?
Well, there's more than one kind of Muslim, though.
They are not well, Iran is a Shia Muslim country as well.
Yeah.
They are not friends.
No.
Because almost as soon as Azerbaijan became independent, they started talking about wanting a greater Azerbaijan.
I see.
Now, when anyone's talking about wanting a greater something, somebody else is going to get pissed off. And what they meant by greater Azerbaijan was all of these Azerbaijanis living in Iran, they wanted them to be part of Azerbaijan.
That's like how the whole AFL got pissed off when Greater Western Sydney joined.
That's right. Greater anything. Yeah, just it's a recipe for trouble.
Yep.
So Iran, the Islamic revolutionary country, since 1990-something, has backed Armenia, a country with one of the oldest Christian heritages on earth, against Muslim Azerbaijan in the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict.
How about that?
Now, for most of that period, their relations had been getting slightly better after 2016. So in 2015, Iran announced that it no longer recognized Nagorno-Karabakh as an independent Armenian republic. So things started to get better, but then they started to get worse again in about 2020, right? So Armenia and Iran had sided with each other for a long time. Azerbaijan and Iran had poor relations. Azerbaijan's main ally in the region is Turkey. That is who Azerbaijan feels most affiliated with. Azerbaijan is a Turkic country, as Turkic language. And certainly Azerbaijan sees itself as a conduit to the Turkic Central Asian republics, okay, which are just on the other side of the Caspian Sea. Now, as I say, Azerbaijan lost that war in 1994. Azerbaijan's power and wealth has increased dramatically since then, mainly due to oil and gas in the Caspian Sea. So when there were conflicts breaking out over Nagorno-Karabakh all the time. There was a decisive conflict in 2020 that basically Azerbaijan just retook Nagorno-Karabakh. Even though there was a Russian-brokered ceasefire, there were more outbreaks of violence, ultimately leading to a violence in 2023 that led to the expulsion of nearly the entire Armenian population of Nagorno-Karabakh and their forcible relocation back to Armenia. So that's 104,000 people. So Nagorno-Karabakh no longer an Armenian enclave. At least there are no longer Armenians who live there.
So what's the fight about then?
Well, so this is about getting a final resolution to this conflict. The big deal now is the fact that there is an Azerbaijani enclave almost entirely contained within, it is entirely contained within Armenian territory.
Greater Azerbaijan.
Can we have the map, please? So this map comes from the Tehran Times, not because I'm endorsing the Iranian point of view, but just because they were the ones who drew the clearest map of this. Okay, so for those of you who can't see it, basically we've got Armenia on the left, the much bigger Azerbaijan on the right. I stress Azerbaijan is a much bigger, more powerful country. Azerbaijan's military budget of $5 billion is bigger than Armenia's entire budget.
Right.
But there is this sliver in the southwestern corner of Azerbaijan there, which is, can't remember the name of the province, but it is basically an autonomous Azerbaijani republic.
So it's literally part of Azerbaijan.
Literally part of Azerbaijan, although because it's completely cut off from Azerbaijan, apparently it's basically a law unto itself.
Okay.
Now, there is a corridor, so there's an Armenian province that gets in the way of that western part of Azerbaijan and the rest of Azerbaijan. There is a corridor known as the Zangezur Corridor, which is the historic transport route between the mainland of Azerbaijan and this western province.
Yeah.
That, though, has been cut off for a very long time. That means anyone wants to get from the mainland of Azerbaijan into that western province, they have a 40-minute flight over Iranian airspace because they can't go over Armenian airspace. Basically, at the moment, all contact between those two parts of Azerbaijan has to go through Iran. And as I said, relations between Azerbaijan and Iran are not very good.
Yeah.
I mean, better than they once were, but not very good.
Okay.
So what the current negotiation and deal is about opening up that transport corridor. So that would be just to the north of the Iranian border. It would be an extraterritorial corridor. Now, Armenia, for obvious reasons, has resisted this for a long time because they say that's an affront to Armenian sovereignty. They also say this will endanger the security of the Armenian people. And for those with long memories, it raises a very alarming point because there are some historians that argue that what the mass killing of Armenians, what Armenians contend was a genocide in 1915, it was largely about the Ottoman Empire trying to create that corridor between two parts of the Turkic world. Okay, so there's long and bad memories of that. However, that photo that you just saw of that epic handshake, that was the presidents of Armenia and Azerbaijan agreeing to open up that corridor. Okay, so why have they agreed to that? It is because the United States has said that it will operate the corridor for 99 years. The US will have exclusive rights to develop and operate that transport corridor.
And what's America getting out of this?
America's got all kinds of opportunities for things that they can get out of this. I mean, so Jack asked what kind of corruption's going on. Well, nothing yet because it hasn't begun yet, but there are going to be a lot of opportunities for corruption there. But even so, basically, American companies are going to be able to make a huge amount out of developing this transport corridor, which this is not just going to be convenient for Azerbaijanis getting from one part of Azerbaijan to another. This now opens up a trade route, as you can see that red line going between Kars in Turkey and Baku. Just on the other side of the Caspian Sea, that's the
oil.
That's the entire Turkic-speaking world.
Yeah.
So this is basically that last 27 miles, that's like the last missing link in the transport corridor that links the entire pan-Turkic world together. But yes, oil. This will allow for a huge amount of hydrocarbons to flow through this region. There already are mechanisms for that, pipelines going through Georgia and Russia, but this is going to put it much more under Azerbaijani control.
So would you say this is a genuine win-win-win situation or not?
Certainly, from the point of view of those three men, it is. Right now, what this reflects, so for Azerbaijan, that means they no longer have to rely on Iran, who are incredibly unreliable at best. Azerbaijan has, for a long time, I would say, been one of the, if not the most pro-Israel Muslim countries in the world. It has aligned itself with the West. It has said that it wouldn't allow the US to build bases in Azerbaijan to attack Iran. But nonetheless, it's taken fairly pro-Western stances, but the US was worried that it was drifting towards Russia a bit. From Armenia's point of view, this potentially opens up a lot of economic opportunities. This could essentially break the mutual blockade that has been in place between Armenia and Azerbaijan while putting it in the hands of a power that they don't have a problem with.
Yeah.
Okay, so they certainly feel that being in the hands of the United States, that's preferable to it being in the hands of Russia or Iran. So from the US point of view, the main thing it does is it's not so much, I mean, there are big opportunities for American countries, etc., but the main thing is a geopolitical one. That is, it massively reduces the influence of Iran, reduces the influence of Russia quite a lot. They're even hoping it possibly reduces Chinese influence a little bit in the region. Okay. That is what is going on in that deal. That's why those three agreed to it. Okay, now, the caveats on this.
Yes.
First of all, it is not a completely done deal yet.
Yep.
And a lot of Armenians in particular still have real concerns about it.
Okay.
One of the concerns that they have is this is supposedly part of a deal to end this conflict over this region, Nagorno-Karabakh, which isn't even marked on that map. One of my former students, Alex Galitsky, who is now a leader of, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's a major Armenian-American lobby group, he says this just doesn't do anything about the main issue, which is 100,000 Armenians have been displaced from their homes in Nagorno-Karabakh. When can they go back home? This doesn't touch that at all. He says this is just rewarding Azerbaijani aggression. This is just cementing Azerbaijan's war gains, essentially. The other thing is it'll need to be ratified by both countries. Azerbaijan probably won't be a problem. Armenia, though, there's all kinds of political conflicts going on in Armenia at the moment. The president is in a bit of a politically precarious position. So it's not exactly clear what is going to happen with that. So I think it's premature to call this a real peace deal, especially when you look at how many armed conflicts there have been over the last 35 years. And I agree with Alex that certainly for a lot of Armenians, this doesn't address the main issue at all, which is Nagorno-Karabakh.
So is that Armenia's position? They want the people to be able to go back to where they.
Well, this is the thing. This hasn't even been addressed. At this stage of the. So this deal was all about this transport corridor. But you would think for a comprehensive peace agreement between the two countries that there would have to be some kind of reconciliation over Nagorno-Karabakh. Now, I don't know what the Armenian government's actual position is. That's an Armenian-American lobby group speaking about that, but I'm sure that they do speak for some Armenians, especially those who've been displaced from that region. So that's the most sort of analytical take I can give you at the moment in terms of I can definitely see how it benefits the US for geopolitical reasons. I can definitely see why Azerbaijan's in favour of it. I can see some benefits for Armenia, but I can also see why Armenians would not think that it's, that it by any means is the end of the conflict. Certainly, even though Russia hasn't said much about it so far, this would be a bit of a blow to Russia in the region because Russia has essentially set itself up as the peacemaker in the region and made both countries dependent on Russia's peacekeeping efforts, which are not very good, not very good at all. So they are welcoming the possibility of the United States, but it's not very hard to think about ways that this could go wrong.
Sure.
Okay, so it would not be the United States military that is there, although there have been hopeful noises, I think, about maybe there could be a US military base there to safeguard it. Certainly in the short term, it's going to be private contractors, okay, which is a very distinctive part of the way that the United States runs its military operations now. When it doesn't want to put American soldiers at risk, it uses private contractors. As we saw in Iraq, where by the end of the Iraq war, there were more private contractors than US military personnel in Iraq, there often tends to be less discipline, way more corruption among private contractors, and a lot of potential for violence that could get out of control. And not surprisingly, one of Iran's statements has been that if the United States goes ahead with it, then this corridor will be a graveyard for American mercenaries, in their words. Now, maybe we don't believe Iranian threats at all about anything anymore, but you can certainly see the possibilities for things going wrong.
Hand the man a Nobel Peace Prize.
That's exactly what the president of Azerbaijan suggested.
Everyone's suggesting that.
Yeah. So I should have mentioned this bit. In order to get Trump over the line, they proposed naming it the Trump International Peace and Prosperity Corridor or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah. The acronym is TRIP. I can't remember quite what it was. Okay. And yes, they said Nobel Peace Prize for Trump. It wasn't Trump that came up with the idea. this had actually been kicked around in the Biden administration before. And it is believed the Biden administration had come close to sealing the deal.
Don't give them the Nobel Peace Prize.
Boo!
Boo!
Yeah. But no, so yes, there is a strong possibility that this might get named the Trump International Peace and Prosperity Corridor.
Dave, thank you so much for that. That is a lot better than I could have done. Let's do a couple more updates before we get into another topic. Kamala Harris update. Look, we haven't talked a lot about the boomlet of stories about Kamala Harris maybe running for president again because it's a ridiculous topic. John loves them on Planet America.
Yeah.
Those who watch Planet America will see we've discussed it a few times. I usually, you have noticed, say nothing or just express extreme skepticism and then just move on because I just think it's a bit of a waste of time. But people are trying to be nice to Kamala Harris and be diplomatic. And so they do indulge her a bit. I feel like, if we're being honest here, Harris has one obvious issue, and that is nobody rates her. That's a problem. I'm not going to speculate why that is. Everyone can have their own theory. But I think it's clear.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. Look at the size of the field for the California governor's race before Kamala Harris pulled out.
Yes.
Okay, it's huge.
Yeah.
And with lots of decent-sized names like Katie Porter, Xavier Becerra, people like that, Antonio Villagrosa, like reasonably sized names, people who don't need to be running for California governor right now.
Yes.
If they thought there was a Bigfoot who's about to just slam into this tiny pool and just take it over, they wouldn't be running.
No.
Because it makes them look bad. But they were running before Kamala Harris decided that she wasn't running. So, especially this far out, normally the small fish don't get in until they know what the big fish are doing, which means she's not a big fish.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
Yeah.
Then this week we saw some polling evidence for this. This is the update. 2028 California primary poll from Emerson. We're already starting these. Gavin Newsom, 23%. Pete Buttigieg, 17%. Kamala Harris, 11%. AOC, 9%. Andy Bashir, 5%. Josh Shapiro, 4%. Bernie Sanders, 4%. Let me remind you, this is a California primary poll.
Yes.
That Buttigieg is thumping Kamala Harris in.
Yes.
Incredibly early, I get all that. But that's exactly when the vice president should have a massive edge. Yeah. Every single 4 years, the vice president is leading these polls by miles at this point in time.
Yeah.
By miles. Like normally the vice president would have 40 or 50% in these kinds of polls.
Yes.
And in this case, the vice president has 11% and Pete Buttigieg has 17%.
Yes.
Not that I'm pissing on Pete Buttigieg. As we all know, I like the guy, which is why I know he's never going to succeed.
Yes.
But I think it does say a lot about how formidable a candidate she actually is. The fact that she's third at this point in time in California.
Okay, well, I've got a couple of observations.
Yes.
One is the primary race has already begun, to my great sadness.
Yes.
Gavin Newsom and Andy Bashir have both been spending time in South Carolina. Yeah. Nobody spends time in South Carolina unless they are considering running for president.
Yeah.
Ruben Gallego has been spending time in Iowa.
Yeah.
So I would say he's probably another one who is going to end up on the list. The primary race has already begun. Look, people used to have a second shot at running for president after they had lost, even if they lost badly a first time. Adlai Stevenson had a couple of goes in the 1950s, lost even more badly in 1956 than he did in 1952. If you want to know why, you might look at some of his advertising from that period. So Eisenhower had the best advertising campaign that had ever been seen to that point, possibly the best one ever. There was a cartoon that he had in 1952 called I Like Ike, which I'm sure we've shown on PEP before, but we might as well show again.
Definitely show on Play America, but Lockie, you can throw it in there.
Yes. Yeah.
You like Ike, I like Ike, everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum, we'll take Ike to Washington.
Doesn't that make you want to vote for Ike?
I'm not sure I'd describe it as the best of all time, Dave.
So
Sure.
I think it's the best of all time.
Okay.
Anyway, the response, so pretty soon, Adlai Stevenson's team began to panic and realised they needed a catchy song in response. So what they came up with was this abomination called I Love the Gov. That was really bad. And they also had their own cartoon, which was making fun of the fact that nobody could pronounce Adlai Stevenson's name, which is just not really a winner. But anyway.
It wasn't.
No, it wasn't. But so, yeah, he got to run twice.
Sure.
And in 1960, Eleanor Roosevelt got angry with the Democratic Party that they nominated John F. Kennedy instead of Adlai Stevenson. Like, how could you turn your back on Adlai Stevenson? Okay, so it used to be normal that, people would have a second shot. Nixon lost in 1960, then lost the California governor's race, then came back to win in 1968. But ever since then, I'm not aware of any examples of losers of presidential races actually coming back. Like, there was, no one would have been suggesting that Mitt Romney could come back after 2012, or that John McCain could come back after 2008, or that Mike Dukakis could come back after 1988, or that Bob Dole could come back after 1996. Admittedly, he was 100 years old by that point. It was just one of those things that it was the orthodoxy. No, they lost. Of course they're not coming back.
Even Al Gore didn't consider it. And Al Gore had the best case.
He absolutely had the best. I remember hearing Michael Moore circa 2004 pleading with Al Gore to come back and get in the race.
Yeah, he arguably won in reality in 2000, number one. Number two, the Iraq War was something that he warned about in advance. Number three, one of the greatest issues in 2004 was climate change, which he had been quite prescient about. So if anyone was ever going to run after losing, it would have been Al Gore, and he didn't.
But when you grow up in the middle of a phenomenon, it's easy to see it as natural and permanent, when in fact it's not. That phenomenon of people not running again after losing, that only begins in about 1970, and it goes until 2024. When Trump comes back. So we may have passed the time when people just bow out gracefully after losing. We may be back into a period where people take multiple shots. I hope not, but we may be.
Interesting. Next, now this is borderline its own topic, but it's an update on gerrymandering. Because now you might have something to add, Dave, given that I talked with Lockie a bit about this after you left last week, but I'll just give you the update. You can jump in if you want. Number one, we never even said why you should care about gerrymandering. Because, if you don't have a team, why? Who gives a stuff? Most of what we were talking about was about who's going to win the midterms. There's a few reasons why you should care, even if you don't have a team. Because of gerrymandering, governments are less representative. So they're worst governors. They make it harder to boot bad politicians out because they're stuck in that position through gerrymandering. And that short circuits accountability for bad governments. The more gerrymandered the government is, the less accountable it is, generally speaking. Because you can't get rid of them. Because they're designed to keep on winning. They feed polarization.
They do.
Because if the Democrats or the Republicans are locked in most of the seats, those politicians can't lose the election. They can only lose the primary.
And to win the primary, that usually means pandering more and more to the base.
Exactly, which is why they feed polarization. So the beneficiaries of these super gerrymandered maps in the future are usually much more extreme than the people who drew those maps in the first place. And the people that they are imagining they were drawing those maps for are nothing like the people who benefit from them down the road, 10 years' time or 20 years' time. Also, they're very hard to remove because the kind of legislature that gerrymanders House seats, gerrymanders their own seats as well. And a classic example of this is North Carolina. Where the state legislature, even though North Carolina is a classic 50-50 state, In terms of the House seats, there's 14 seats and Republicans hold them 10-4, even though it's 50-50. And they hold both state houses by about 60-40.
Yeah.
So they're never going to lose,
No.
at least not at this point in time, until there's a huge swing. And on top of that, everyone hates it. I mean, you look at YouGov, 69% of Americans say that gerrymandering should be illegal. I agree.
Yeah.
80% of Democrats, 57% of Republicans say that as well.
Yes.
So even the majority of Republicans say it should be illegal. Only 14% of Republicans in that poll say it should be legal. So why does it exist? This is a classic example of where partisanship leads to subpar outcomes. Because no one thinks it should exist, but they would prefer for it to exist if it allows them to get an advantage over the people they hate.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the general why you should care. Now, Texas Going On's update. There's been pressure building all week. Texas Senator John Cornyn tried to get the FBI involved. Cornyn said, I am proud to announce that Director Kash Patel has approved my request for the FBI to assist state and local law enforcement in locating runaway Texas House Democrats. Maybe they're helping locating them, but they don't seem to be helping doing anything else. They're saying they're arresting them.
We found them. They're at this press conference in Illinois where there are all these TV cameras showing them saying we're in Illinois now.
You know that hotel where there was a bomb threat where all the Democrats left that hotel? Yeah, that's where they are. Just look at the news. Anyway, it's not a big surprise. The FBI isn't supposed to enforce state laws.
No.
And what Texas Democrats are doing isn't against the law anyway.
It's not.
So what's the FBI going to do? Cornyn tried to make out that there was a law breaking. He said legislators who solicited or accepted funds to aid in their efforts.
This is the bribery.
Yes, bribery.
Bribery angle.
To avoid their legislative duties may be guilty of bribery or other public corruption offences. Now, you have to prove they stayed away because of the donations, which obviously isn't the case.
Yes.
B, in making bribery pretty close to illegal, or legal, the Supreme Court, one of their recent rulings, held that the contributions can't be in return for already completed acts in order to be bribery. They're already staying away before they get the money.
Yeah.
So, by definition, that's not bribery according to the Supreme Court. So, there you go. John Cornyn knows this. This is about his primary with Ken Paxton. They're both trying to out-dickhead each other when it comes to this issue because they know Republicans in Texas aren't very keen on Texas Democrats. So, they're both trying to rabble-rouse as much as they can. There's building financial pressure on these guys as well. Living in a hotel for weeks is expensive. They're getting fined $500 a day. They only get $600 a month from Texas. They're not their jobs. They're probably getting sacked.
Yeah. I want to emphasize this. There are many state legislatures in the United States where it's not a full-time job.
Texas.
Or not a job at all. The Texas state legislature doesn't meet that much, doesn't meet that often. And, yeah, they get paid these stipends. They're not paid a salary. There are some state legislatures where it's fully professionalized. But my favourite state legislature is New Hampshire.
Yes.
More than 400 members in a state of...
Tiny state.
Yeah, in one of the smallest states of the unions. Has one of the largest legislatures in the world.
Yeah.
It's slightly smaller than US Congress, smaller than British Parliament, and smaller than Indian Parliament. But I mean, it's not that much smaller than Indian Parliament. It's only like 600 fewer seats than Indian Parliament. And India's the biggest country in the world.
New Hampshire's not.
Yeah, 1.4 billion people.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people New Hampshire has, but it's something like it's at least a factor of 1,000 less than that. But suffice to say, those are not all full-time legislators. 1.4 million.
It's perfect.
God, I love when geography just gives us a bit of serendipitous symmetry like that. So, yes, but they are obviously not all full-time employees. Otherwise, the entire budget of the state of New Hampshire would just be upkeep for this legislature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're definitely not in Texas either. Texas House Speaker Dustin Burrows has made it so they have to pick up their pathetic paycheck in person now. And a third of their expenses must be arranged in person as well. Beto's super PAC was funding them until recently.
Yep.
It's called Powered by People. He was also funding their travel expenses, their lodging expenses, and their fines.
I'm surprised Beto isn't openly in the race yet.
He's trying. Tarrant County District Judge Megan Fay, though, gave O'Rourke a restraining order this week to stop funding. She said consumers who gave money to his PAC were donating money for political purposes, not to make political contributions to fund personal expenses for other politicians and potentially people who are potentially violating state law. So she said it's under consumer law. She said he shouldn't do that.
It's a political science, as I would say that what those legislators are doing is very political.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that means
Whatever.
the legal definition of political purposes.
I mean, it might get appealed. I don't. Doesn't look like O'Rourke is appealing. Just
Okay,
looks like he's
Beto,
angry.
get in touch with me if it does get appealed.
He's a pepper for sure.
About what political means.
And then there's the pressure of having a family at home that they can't visit.
Yeah.
Okay. And what is all this for? They know they're going to have to come back eventually, right? And they know this map is going to get passed at that point in time. The reason they know that is because Greg Abbott has made that very clear.
In Texas, I'm authorized to call a special session every 30 days. It lasts 30 days. And as soon as this one is over, I'm going to call another one, then another one, then another one, then another one.
And look, he can only do that till December 8 when Texas's filing deadline occurs. Theoretically, courts could push those deadlines back if necessary a little bit. But the point is, they're not going to last till December, so it doesn't matter, especially when you consider two things. One, this is about raising attention for the issue, which they've already done now. Yeah. When the attention dries up, which in Trump's America happens pretty quickly, the sacrifice they're making is going to seem a lot less worth it. Number one. Number two, it just takes 2 or 3 Democrats to have something happen and for them to come back. And then quorum's over.
Yep.
And they all know that. There's a real collective action issue here, and that will become worse as time goes on.
Yes.
So they're kind of up against it. They're under a lot of pressure, and over time, that's going to become a problem. Which is why it was interesting when yesterday, ABC 13 in Texas reported that the Democrats had already decided they were going to give up in the next few days. They didn't have an exact time when the first special session ends this weekend. CNN had a competing report saying that no decision has been made. I don't think it's going to be far off because this is what a spokesperson for the Texas Democrats said. Members are still assessing their strategies going forward and are in a private meeting to make decisions about future plans currently. If and when Texas House Democrats breaking quorum decide to go home is squarely dependent on the actions of the governor, speaker, and Texas Republicans in charge make with regard to prioritizing flood victims over redistricting that hurts Texans. Now, I think that's a telling line because the Texas Republicans were using flood victims assistance as another hook to bash the Democrats with. They were saying they couldn't pass flood assistance because the Democrats weren't in the state. The Democrats now are saying that is what's going to determine when they come back, not what's going to happen with the district the district drawing, which is what this is about.
Right.
But about flood assistance victims.
Yeah.
What that says to me is it says they're already setting up their excuse. They're going, we wanted to stay away. We had to support our communities with assistance for floods. That's why we're back. So the fact they set up their excuse now tells me they're thinking about coming back.
All right. You heard it here first.
Yeah. And especially since their reason that their thing they say them coming back depends on has nothing to do with the actual drawing of the boundaries, which is what Republicans would stand firm on.
Yes.
So my guess, and December 8 is going to seem a long way away at the moment. My guess is by the next PEP, they're going to be back home.
All right.
But we'll see. We will see. You can hold me to that. Let's say it's not by next PEP. Let's say it's the week after. Texas is still going to get their map. Do we still have an arms race or is this over? It's hard to know. I suspect we have an arms race, though.
Yeah. Look, one of the things that we were talking about last week, I mean, you were saying that Democrats really have a lot more to lose.
They do.
And I was thinking about this on my way out of the building, and something very obvious occurred to me, which is Republicans always have the majority of state delegations because every time we have an election and we go through the various scenarios of what could happen, what could go wrong, what happens if it that provision has to be invoked of, it actually goes to Congress for a vote. And you remember, it's not just a simple majority of Congress. It's every delegation gets a vote, and it's the majority within that delegation that controls the vote, and it is always Republicans who control that. So if this is taken to its absurd logical endpoint of every state becomes a one-party state, that will entrench Republican advantage forever. Or maybe not forever, but...
That was very dramatic, Dave.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, they have an advantage.
Yes,
absolutely. So you think it's in Republicans' interest to push this?
Yes.
So you have your arms raised.
Very bad for the country, though.
Oh, it's
I mean, the
terrible for
whole
the
idea
country.
of the House of Representatives was that representatives would represent communities.
Yeah. The House of Representatives is already
Yeah.
in the Trump era kind of dead.
Yes.
And this would kill it for good.
This would be like a worse version of the Senate.
Yeah.
A way worse version of the Senate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, look, I think we are going to have that arms race, though, for a few reasons. I think that it's, once again, collective action is the name of the game here. There's another collective action problem here. While I don't think it's in Democrats' interest as a party to keep pushing, it's definitely in the interests of some Democratic individuals.
Yes.
Like Hakeem Jeffries,
Yes.
who has been slammed by the base as not being a fighter for the last 6 months. Here is an issue he was comfortable getting behind to fight on. Jeffries last week said one cannot unilaterally disarm. The Republicans are counting on that as part of their scheme to try to steal the midterm elections and gerrymander these congressional maps with impunity. And the senior Democrat said to Axios, Jeffries is the one actually leading the fight. He's hands-on leading this one. So can Jeffries back down now without looking super weak?
I mean, part of the problem is that long before it was imagined that this would ever happen, there were states that actually passed laws to make gerrymandering for partisan advantage illegal, or to set up independent commissions to draw seats.
The Supreme Court has completely buggered this up.
Yeah,
in the last 10 years.
Yeah. So as I said, that was quite a while ago that this was happening. You had these clean government movements. They mainly happened in blue states.
Yeah,
not exclusively, but mainly happened in blue. So there are some democratic states who have already unilaterally disarmed by law. Yeah.
Well, some of them are trying to unilaterally rearm
Yes.
right now. The other person who obviously benefits as an individual from this turn to an arms race is Gavin Newsom.
Yes.
And his 2028 campaign, which we just described, is already in train.
Yeah.
This week, his press office on Twitter, did you see his tweets?
No, there's nothing that could induce me to look at Gavin Newsom's tweets.
He's started to mock Trump's tweets. So that might make you one. I've got all three of them up here. Here's the first one. Donald Trump, the lowest polling president in recent history. This is your second to last warning. The next one is the last one. Stand down now or California will counter-strike legally to destroy your illegal crooked maps in red states. Press conference coming, hosted by America's favourite governor, Gavin Newsom. Final warning next. You won't like it. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And then about 2 days later, he sent through this one. Final warning, Donald Trump, maybe the most important warning in history. Stop cheating or California will redraw the maps. And guess who'll announce it this week? Gavin Newsom. Many say the most loved and handsome governor and a very powerful team. Don't make us do it. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And then 2 days after that, he tweets out, Donald Taco Trump, as many call him, missed the deadline. California will draw new, more beautiful maps. They'll be historic as they will end the Trump presidency. Dems take back the House. Big press conference this week with powerful Dems and Gavin Newsom, your favourite governor. They'll be devastating for MAGA. Thank you for your attention to this matter. GN.
Was it you who once pointed out that most satire basically isn't funny at all?
Yes, that was me, yes. So political satire is comedy, it's not funny.
Yeah.
Yes. Those tweets got a lot of attention.
Of course they did.
Yeah. After that, he can't pretend they didn't happen. He can't back down now.
No.
He's wrapped himself in this now. He's committed. It'd make him look terrible. And I saw that Gavin Newsom has called a press conference for tomorrow, so I assume that's what it's going to be about. That people watching this watching this, listening to this, will know what happened. I assume that's about Gavin Newsom announcing that he's going to redraw California's boundaries anyway. So I think they're going for it, and then we all know what's going to happen. As soon as California does, Florida's going to. They're already talking about it.
Yeah.
And then we're in our arms race. New York, you've got Kathy Hochul talking about war.
Mm-hmm.
But here in New York, we will not stand on the sidelines with the timid souls on the sidelines who don't care, will not invest their heart and soul into this battle. This is a war. We are at war. And that's why the gloves are off. And I say, bring it on.
Because everyone knows that your major weapon in a war is fists.
Why does a sign language person have so much more charisma than she does? Anyway, I don't know. But my point is, like, she's going to be next after Florida goes. It's on. I think it's on. I mean, I might be wrong on that, but I do think it's on. So that's the next few months, especially given Texas is the first state to have a deadline. All the other states have much later deadlines. So they can wait and see.
Yes.
And then go in a couple of months. So I suspect it's going to be a domino effect.
Yep.
But anyway, you got anything else to add on this topic?
No.
Okay, I've got a great correspondence on this.
Okay.
Before we move on. This is excellent.
Yes.
This is A1, who was chiding both you and me, who've said similar things. You keep saying that if one party gets X percent of the votes in a state, they should get about X percent of the House seats in that state. And getting a higher proportion of seats than votes is evidence of gerrymandering. This is not true. Heaps of people make this mistake, so it's quite likely you've been misled by reading or seeing something in the media. Anyway, the maths involved here is a lot more complicated than you made it out to be. I'm going to interrupt just this moment to say I am not assuming that if you have a higher percentage of seats, that's gerrymandering. California has an independent commission. They also have a higher percentage of seats. What I am saying is if you have a much higher percentage of seats, then that gives your party an unfair advantage. That's what I am saying. It might not be because of cheating, but it's still an advantage. Ideally, that would not be the case. I like proportional representation.
I don't think we've ever said that a single member district system should approximate proportional representation.
I know, but I like when I was talking gerrymandering last week, I was citing those
the fact
numbers
that whenever you have a geographically drawn system, you never get perfect representation.
No.
This is something that is well known to people who create those systems.
But A1's maths is very interesting. So let me
what
keep on reading.
What does A1 say?
It says, here's a rough votes to seats estimate. Consider California, which had an overall 60% presidential vote for Harris and other left-wing candidates. Let's assume the House vote proportions roughly line up with presidential vote proportions. Every district has only a blue candidate and a red candidate, so 60% of Californians voted blue for the House. If we further suppose that absent gerrymandering, the blue vote proportions of all districts roughly follow a normal distribution, and that the standard deviation in the blue vote proportion is about 10%, which he said, based on a quick look, it seems to be the case. Then statistics would predict about 84% of all the districts to have blue votes above 50%, mean minus one standard deviation. In reality, the 2024 election saw 43 of 52 districts go blue, or about 83%. So California's map is pretty darn fair. A similar calculation for Texas comes up with about 75% of the seats, or 28 of 38 from 56% of the votes, meaning Texas's 25 red seats might actually favour Democrats slightly. And the extra 3 or 4 from the proposed gerrymander might actually make it more fair. I think the main point here is that delivering proportional results is not the goal of America's voting system. If you think about it, it's probably for the best the group with 15% popular support doesn't end up with 15% of the seats and the balance of power in the House. There are some pretty scary factions in America that could get 15% popular support. The system is designed to elect generally tolerated parties and keep out fringe groups, which is why a party with 15% of the vote spread randomly across districts will always get 0% of the seats. So it's really good.
I'm not sure what he's complaining about, sorry.
He's making 2 points. The first of which is that, as far as the maths goes, if you average about 60% of one party across the state, then the spread is from above 60% to below 60%. So very few seats will be below 50%. So if you have 60% of the vote, you should expect to win almost every seat. because of the way it's distributed, right?
Yes.
That's the first point.
Was he listening to our episode about the Australian election when we saw that the Labor Party with 55% of the vote won nearly 2/3 of the seats?
I can't speak for what he was
We were
listening
not
to.
suggesting that that was as a result of a gerrymander.
But the second point he makes is that he says that's a good thing because who wants the parties with 15% support or 10% support to get seats? They're probably fringe parties.
Yeah, sure. I think that the issue in the US, though, is that we're not talking about these states as self-contained locations. We're talking about them as participants in a national congress. And when you have this kind of distortion in states that are quite closely balanced in electoral terms, if you look at the overall vote, so the North Carolinas of the world, when you get these results which give one party a majority, a huge majority in that state, that's a problem because there are already a lot of states where, because they've got much, much bigger majorities going on, basically all of the seats in that state, or nearly all of the seats in that state. So if you look at the Mississippis and Alabamas of the world, where Republicans get about 70% of the vote, they'll be very lucky to get 1 or 2 seats out of that. Like, fine, you can understand that. But then when you have these 52% states, when you're getting 10 out of 14 of the seats going to one party, that creates at the national level this very, very imbalanced result. Now, I take his point about, what was the American electoral system originally designed to achieve, but there's been a large body of jurisprudence that has said one of the things that it is trying to actually achieve is representativeness. Hence, those rules that used to exist about compactness, contiguity, representation of communities. And what's going on with the redistricting at the moment is it is trampling over those principles. It is trampling over those principles, which used to say that electoral districts should look like actual districts. It's trampling over those principles in order to get to results that benefit one party or the other. So I understand the maths about how, yes, even a fairly closely balanced system can produce wildly imbalanced results. As I say, we've just seen that in Australia, and I'm not accusing Australia of gerrymandering at all. What we're looking at in the US now, and what we've been talking about, is deliberate gerrymandering for partisan advantage. And that is showing up in the fact that states like North Carolina, which are pretty closely balanced, have these enormous imbalances.
Fair response. And you're less impressed with A1 than I am, but I just want to thank you for that comment, A1, because I liked it a lot. I still like proportional representation, by the way, but I acknowledge this is not it. I just want to mention the census thing quickly. Trump started talking last week about having a new census. He said, I have instructed our Department of Commerce to immediately begin work on a new and highly accurate census based on modern day facts and figures, and importantly, using the results and information gained from the presidential election of 2024. People who are in our country illegally will not be counted in the census. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Drink. I'm going to just race through this quite quickly because I think it's just worth mentioning. Why does he want this? When there's a new census, it gives Republicans a reason for more redistricting and more gerrymandering, number one. Number two, the US Census Bureau's 2020 post-enumeration survey, they conduct these surveys, found 14 states were miscounted in the 2020 census.
Yep.
Undercounted states were Arkansas, Florida, Illinois, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Texas, so 5 out of the 6 were red. Overcounted states were Delaware, Hawaii, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New York, Ohio, Rhode Island, and Utah. So 6 out of the 8 were blue, which suggests there was a huge advantage to Democrats from the errors in the 2020 census. So they want to get rid of those changes. People have done the maths on this. They estimate it would probably make a 4-seat difference if they hadn't had those errors towards the Republicans, that is. How do we know the survey was more accurate than the original census? That's a good question. Whoever asked that in their head, I don't know. 3, he wants to not count illegal immigrants. According to Pew, California has 1.8 million illegals. Texas has 1.6 million. Florida has 1.2 million. New York has 0.65 million. New Jersey 0.47 and Illinois 0.4. I personally think that could end up hurting Republicans more than Democrats.
Yes.
Texas and Florida. That's a lot of their
Yep.
electoral votes. But well, yeah, whatever. They're his 3 reasons. I presume he won't tell us. But yeah. The problem for him, the 14th Amendment, Section 2 states representatives shall be apportioned amongst the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed. When the Constitution says whole number of persons, the Supreme Court has interpreted that to mean, surprisingly, whole people. Doesn't matter if you're a citizen or not.
Yes.
So good luck. Secondly, Article 1, Section 2 says the actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of the Congress of the United States and within every subsequent term of 10 years in such manner as they shall by law direct. Now, it says within every subsequent term of 10 years. So 6 years is less than 10 years. It's within. So why can't he do it then? It seems to be the suggestion that would be that'll be okay under the law. And if you're just looking at the language of the Constitution, then that would be the case. But then you notice which article it's in. It's Article 1, which is about Congress. Congress are the guys who call the census.
That's right.
Not the president. That's his problem. Short of Republicans removing the filibuster, the Democrats are not going to let that happen. So, fine. You might say, well, Trump owns the Supreme Court, doesn't he? They can decide whatever they want. It's not going to happen. He's got no time to waste. To affect the 2026 election, he has to, 1, get $15 billion from Congress, because that's how much a census costs. 2, conduct a census, which takes months. 3, the census has to then be reported, which takes longer. 4, the states need to draw new districts, which take forever. 5, the states need to pass those new districts, which depending on how many people end up in other states hiding in hotels, could take some time. That's all before filing deadlines in the next 5 or 6 months.
Yes.
So that's not going to happen. In fact, he'd be lucky to get it up before the 2028 election. Because also every step is going to be challenged in court as well.
Yeah.
And so just going to the Supreme Court once is going to take 6 months. Right? So this is a very long-term thing. He's dreaming if he thinks he's going to get a 2026 census up. Also, bear in mind, they've already begun preparing the 2030 census now. They take time.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just want to just tell you the reasons why that's all bullshit and it's not going to happen.
Yes.
Because he's talking a lot about that. Do you have anything to add to any of that?
No.
No. What I'd like your view on, Dave,
Yep.
is an update on Gaza.
Okay.
We did have a correspondent. I tell you, we got a lot of correspondence this week about Marjorie Taylor Greene, which we referred to last week about how how surprising it was that she was the first Republican to condemn Israel as committing genocide. Yeah, Cheers says that's not surprising at all. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene moving to an anti-Israel stance is more or less in line with her previous statements about Jewish space lasers, as well as her general sympathy towards Russia and its allies, because Russia was allies with Hamas.
Yes.
So, that's a fair point, I think, from Cheers. But we found out about Netanyahu's plan this week.
Yes.
That is the update. They plan to take over Gaza City by October 7.
Yep.
Has about 1 million people, move those people to humanitarian zones, lay siege to Gaza City to get Hamas out, US taking over aid, increasing the GHF sites from 4 to 16, operating them 24 hours a day, putting $1 billion into the aid operations. Is it militarily possible? We don't know. Will Hamas stay there to fight or just move with the people somewhere else? Probably. What happens after that?
Yeah.
We don't know. All these questions remain unanswered and unplanned for. My question for you is, does this change anything to what you said last week?
No.
No. That's a pretty simple answer. Do you want to say anything else on the plan or the update?
This is more evidence of Netanyahu fighting this war because it benefits him politically. He's fighting this war to keep his coalition together. There is no end plan. There is certainly no afterwards plan. This is going to cause a massive amount of death. This is going to cause a lot of civilian misery. I don't know about this plan to increase GHF sites, but I've got to believe that an assault on Gaza City, at least in the short term, is just going to exacerbate the hunger problem. This is going to lead to more deaths of Israeli soldiers. This is, how many tens of thousands of Palestinians are going to be added to the death toll when this happens. Given how many, we talked about this last week, military figures, ex-military figures are basically crying out that any reasonable military purpose has already been achieved, right? Stopping Hamas from threatening Israel, that's been achieved. Wiping out Hamas altogether, there are serious concerns about whether that is even achievable at all. But certainly maintaining Hamas as the permanent enemy, you can see how that benefits Benjamin Netanyahu politically. It continues to give him a purpose for being the leader. It continues to create some kind of rally round the flag effect, even as people are getting increasingly angry with him about the hostages not coming back. If you have an enemy that can never be wiped out, then you can fight them forever and you can keep your government together forever.
Fair enough. The reason I brought this up is I really need to back over something which I introduced on Israel last week. This is not from a correspondent. This is just from something I read. It's a classic update. Last week, I directed you guys to an interview with a fellow named Tony Aguilar. He was a security guy at GHF.
Yep.
I included a 4-minute extract with a story about his encounter with a boy who came to GHF for food. The boy had walked several miles barefoot, picked up some scraps, thanked them with kisses and so forth. There was an exchange, and he walked away and then was shot. That was his story, Tony Aguilar's story. It was a very moving story, which was why I excerpted it and linked you to where you could see more from it. This week, conservative media had a very new angle on this story. The Daily Wire got their hands on a whole lot of info about Tony Aguilar. Now, before I say anything, let me be clear. The Daily Wire is a conservative publication. And one of the people running the Daily Wire is Ben Shapiro, who is quite possibly the most pro-Israel commentator in America. Quite possibly.
Yes.
So it would not surprise me that they want to try and deal with this guy, because this guy was a powerful voice against Ben Shapiro's interests, okay? Let's be very clear about that. Now, they say they found the boy's stepmother. They say they have an interview with her. I'm not going to play it because those listening won't understand it. It's in a foreign language. But I will link to the story in the homework and you can judge for yourself. And if you have any interest in what Tony Aguilar said last week, I advise you to at least read the story and make up your own mind.
I'm really glad you're not going to show us any Ben Shapiro.
I'm not showing you any Ben Shapiro.
The thing about Ben Shapiro is, even when there's nobody there for him not to make eye contact with, he's still very obviously not making eye contact with someone.
That's a great observation. Okay, now I'm just going to describe what is in the article. It's a very long article. So like I said, if you're interested at all in this story, that was very funny. You should have a look in the homework, which is in the blurb underneath the videos.
Yep.
And in fact, in the audio as well. Okay. Now, according to the woman in this interview, her stepson was never shot, but went missing 2 months after the events described by Aguilar took place, which was a couple of days ago.
Yep.
She says she doesn't know where he is. She's worried. She seems certain that Aguilar had just mixed up the dates and the story actually took place 2 months later.
Oh, okay.
Aguilar definitely did not mix up the dates. The Daily Wire also report that the GHF say no incident took place, and even if it had, Aguilar could not possibly have witnessed it, as he said, because GHF contractors are prohibited from leaving the secure aid sites. He couldn't have seen it. He had no line of sight from within the site to what was happening outside, is what they say. They also have both Tony Aguilar's original footage of the boy and body cam footage of an American security contractor who was standing next to Aguilar, and they put them side by side in the video, so you can see it for yourself. It appears to capture an exchange with the boy. We know because there's photos of the boy from Aguilar, right? Now, what the body cam footage shows is not exactly how Aguilar described it, but it's close enough to be within the bounds of realistic normal memory and exaggeration. I'd say that at least. You can make up your own mind. Once again, watch it for yourself. For his part, Aguilar said this to the Daily Wire, that the rest of his interaction transpired off camera. He said there was more.
Yeah.
He said, the video you show misses the moments of the key elements you're claiming to discredit, yet your video doesn't not show it. You weren't there. I'm on the record. I did not embellish, and it's clearly evident that Armenia and I had the interaction, he says. The security contractor whose body cam the first interaction is on says that Aguilar's story is fabricated. He goes into a bit more detail. You can read about what he has to say if you read the article. I'm not going to describe the entire article here. It goes forever. They asked Aguilar about whether he was sure the boy was killed. Aguilar said he saw Armenia's motionless body on the ground. He could not verify that he was dead. He said that based on his 25 years of experience in the army, he assessed the boy was dead, or at minimum fatally wounded. I saw Amir's body on the ground, having fallen dropped to the ground amidst the gunfire from the IDF, which was being fired towards the crowd as a crowd control measure to keep them moving in a westerly direction to the Morag corridor as they left the site. It's always been my position that he and others were dead. The body wasn't moving, otherwise others ran or limped away. I nor anyone could verify he was dead. Considering he has not been found and has not been seen, it's safe to say my assessment's correct. However, if he were to be alive, that would be a blessing. Yet it does not excuse the firing of warning shots toward near a group of unarmed civilians. The Daily Wire has also found more about Aguilar. The day after the interaction, Aguilar allegedly sent out a daily impact report to his fellow teammates where he praised them for their work and included 2 pictures of the boy. He tells them they're doing a great job and that your efforts have brought families back together and have severely weakened the image of Hamas. There are a bunch of texts there from that day, released by GHF, I might add. They all seem pretty chipper. You can read them for yourself. You can decide if you believe them or not. Aguilar also changed his story about which GHF site he met the boy at when prompted. Finally, the Daily Wire have a bunch of texts that Aguilar allegedly sent after he was sacked by GHF 3 weeks later. They say he was sacked due to his poor performance, volatile conflicts with staff and erratic behaviour. In the alleged texts that he supposedly sent, he asked for his job back a few times and seems to threaten them. You can read them as well. Overall, I think that unless someone has pulled off an almighty intelligence op, which is possible, there is a lot of evidence to consider about this story at least. And that's why I'm bringing it to your attention, so you can consider it. You can read the article and decide for yourself. The link's in the homework. You can look at the evidence, make up your own mind. So that's a very long description because I think I played a very long clip last week and I want to be fair.
Okay.
So I'm now fair. All right. Dave, why don't we get into the big story of the
Okay.
which is Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Let's start at the beginning, the background. What started this all off? Big balls.
Well, I think big balls was the pretext.
Yeah.
I think Trump has been wanting to do this for a while.
He has been.
But yes, the pretext was big balls got carjacked.
He did.
Imagine telling yourself 5 years ago when we began PEP, one day you're going to use the phrase big balls got carjacked. Now, I've actually found it hard to piece together from the stories that I've been reading whether it was he and his significant other who were carjacked or whether she was carjacked and then he intervened, or whether it was a woman who had no relationship with him who was carjacked and he intervened. What actually happened?
My understanding, it was him and his significant other were standing outside the car.
Right.
When they were approached by about 10 youths.
Okay.
And Big Balls, showing off his very large balls, told her to get back into the car.
Right.
And then he tried to take them all on himself.
Okay, yes.
And that was a mistake because he ended up looking like this.
Yes.
Yes. That is my understanding of what happened.
Yeah. So Mike Lee suggested that he should be awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor
I wouldn't go that far.
for that. Yes.
Can I also make I've got a lot of thoughts about this whole story.
Yes.
Okay? So I'm going to keep on saying these kinds of things. But
Yep.
let me just stop for a second.
Yes.
Just make a very important point that's been skipped over. The reason Big Balls only looks like that
Yes.
is because the police showed up.
That's right.
The police actually
This is a
turned up.
very important element of this story.
In the
A crime was being committed and the police came along in the middle of the crime.
In the middle of the crime.
And stopped it.
Not 10 hours later, they came in the middle of the carjacking and saved the dude who was trying to take on 10 people
Yes.
and arrested 2 of them while the other 8 ran away, which isn't that's not a bad effort.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like, so that's in Washington, D.C., the police are functional enough, at
Yes.
least, to be able to do that kind of thing.
By the way, these attackers 15 or 16 years old.
Yes, they're
Yes.
kids. They're kids.
And this was in Logan Circle. So for those of you familiar with DC geography, this is near the DuPont region. Sort of, I think, if I remember correctly, it's between DuPont and the capital area. Basically, it's close enough to the White House and the Capitol that they were able to talk about only a few blocks from here.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the important thing is, it's not exactly Mad Max in Washington, D.C. The police turn up so quickly so that they get there while someone is being beaten up.
Also, like, this is 3 a.m.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time wandering around DuPont Circle and Logan Circle, admittedly not at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
But, like, when it's dark,
Yeah.
but, at civilized times, like 9 or 10 at night, I've never felt unsafe there. But, this is 3 a.m.
Yeah.
The world is a different place after midnight.
Having said that, Trump was not impressed.
No, he was not.
He tweeted out that photo. That photo is from Trump's Truth account. And in that same tweet, he said, crime in Washington, D.C. is totally out of control. Local youths and gang members, some only 14, 15, 16, are randomly attacking, mugging, maiming, and shooting innocent citizens at the same time knowing that they will be almost immediately released. They are not afraid of law enforcement because they know nothing ever happens to them. But it's going to happen now. The law in D.C. must be changed to prosecute these minors as adults and lock them up for a long time, starting at age 14. If D.C. doesn't get its act together and quickly, we will have no choice but to take federal control of the city and run this city how it should be run and put criminals on notice that they're not going to get away with it anymore. Perhaps it should have been done a long time ago. Then this incredible young man and so many others would not have to go through the horrors of violent crime. If this continues, I'm going to exert my powers and federalize the city, make America great again. I didn't read the whole tweet, but I read enough. I read enough to point out to you that you notice what Trump's complaints are? They're not that there isn't enough law and order. He's not going, we need more police. He's not doing that.
No.
What he's saying
Is that they're not prosecuted as adults.
that's right.
Yes.
He's saying the punishments aren't severe enough. And that is actually the cliche on Fox News at the moment.
Yeah.
That the punishments in DC aren't severe enough. Right?
It's not that the police aren't showing up.
Now, remember that. We're going to come back to that.
Yes.
The prosecutors are way too lenient in DC. That is his position. Okay, just remember that one. All right, so I think Dave knows where I'm going.
I
now.
know exactly where you're going with this.
Okay, so let's now move to the history of home rule
Yes.
to build this up.
Yep.
Is this something you can take or is this something
You
I should
go.
take? Okay, well, I'll start and you can chip in if you want it.
Yep.
The Constitution gives Congress power over a capital district, whatever that district should be.
Yes.
Washington is not in the Constitution, just a capital district.
Yes,
is,
yes.
Okay? Up to 1874, Washington, D.C. had a local government. Then Congress, they decided to run D.C. through a 3-member board of commissions. The board was appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. 1 member was a Democrat, 1 member was a Republican, and 1 was a civil engineer. They did it for 100 years. And then in 1973, Congress passed the Home Rule Act. They decided to change the system. That created the Washington, D.C. government that we know of today. It's only about 50 years old. It also created the D.C. Charter, which creates legislative, executive, and judicial branches specific to D.C. local government. Congress has retained control of the judicial branches completely. Their judges are all nominated by the president, every single one of them.
Yep.
Okay? The Mayor of DC and DC Council have been granted substantial powers and independence, but it's all subject to the ultimate approval of Congress, who retain the ability to overrule any piece of legislation that they pass. Okay, that's that's their powers generally.
Yes. Sorry, I was just looking up because something occurred to me while you were talking about this from deep in Washington, D.C. history. Mm-hmm. There was an election riot in 1857.
Yeah, go on.
And it involved the Know-Nothings.
Yep.
So the Know-Nothings, who in DC were a gang known as the Plug Uglies. Right. One of the things that inhibited the Know-Nothings a bit was they were organised as street gangs.
By the way, for those who are wondering,
Yeah.
Know-Nothings?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The reason they were called the Know-Nothings is because when they were apprehended, they would say, "We know nothing."
Yes.
They're not saying we're stupid.
So their official name was the American Party.
Yes. Yeah.
So that in cities with a lot of immigrants, they would often have riots with Democrats because they didn't want immigrants to vote, and they would vote Democratic. So yes, there was a riot between the Plug Uglies and the Democrats in 1857, and the mayor, who was drunk, ordered the military to open fire on the Know-Nothings. Know-Nothings died as a result of that.
Tell you what, 170 years, not that much has
Great
changed.
moments in drunk mayor history. I'm pretty sure I'm remembering that story correctly.
I believe
that was
you.
something I was looking at in my PhD.
Do you have anything else to add on the
No.
history?
I just wanted to point out that there's a history of drunken mayors ordering the military to fire on rioters.
Okay. All right. Well, now, moving the history along.
Yes.
I talk about Congress a lot there. I didn't mention the president. Am I going, where's Trump's powers fit into this?
Yeah.
Not much, to be honest. It's mostly Congress.
Yes.
But while the Constitution gives the federal government as a whole plenary authority over the seat of government, the details are up to Congress.
Yep.
Congress could, by the way, truly federalize DC if they wanted to. Trump cannot. Congress has the power. Trump does not.
Yes.
But Congress has carved out one tiny bit of power for the president in the 1973 Home Rule Act, just in case there's a violent uprising.
Yep.
And that is Rule 740. And this allows Trump himself to control the Metropolitan Police Department, the MPD is where we're going to refer to them from now on. That's DC's police. He can control them for 2 days. If he writes to Congress, he can control them for 30 days. That's it. Now, the wording here is important. It's if a president determines that special conditions of an emergency nature exist, which require the use of the Metropolitan Police Force for federal purposes, then DC's mayor has to lend the president such services of the Metropolitan Police Force as the president may deem necessary and appropriate. So, A, the president needs to determine it's an emergency. B, it needs to be for federal purposes. Those two are part of the law. Then you get 2 days, maybe 30 days. Also, as Commander-in-Chief, Trump has complete control over the National Guard in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Unlike in the case of, say, California, the states, where the governors have authority over their own National Guards and the president needs to request them, the president has explicit authority over the DC National Guard. He can do whatever he likes, which means he
can make them dance for his entertainment if he wants.
He can. And he doesn't violate the Posse Comitatus Act if he uses them for law enforcement. He can use them to do whatever he wants. That's a big difference. Okay. But needs to be for federal purposes. What are federal purposes? The federal government retains authority over federal institutions in the district. So the Capitol Police can pull you over for speeding in front of the Capitol, for instance. That's a federal purpose because it's federal land. But ordinary crimes committed not on federal land, they're not federal purposes.
Yep.
They are the authority of the MPD. The president never has authority over them. Never, according to the law. So the president can't control how the police perform DC duties, just federal duties. Federal law enforcement officers do not have jurisdiction over most of DC, but The Office of Legal Counsel has always considered that the National Guard can be used for law enforcement purposes anytime the president wants. Okay. So, persistently high crime rates, obviously not an emergency. The DC Attorney General tweeted out, there is no crime emergency in the District of Columbia. Violent crime in DC reached historic 30-year lows last year and is down another 26%. We'll get to the stats later on. This is just one more sloppy usage of emergency laws by the president. We've talked about a lot of these.
Yep.
Who's going to call him out on that? The law says... Sorry, go on, Dave.
I'm going to say, but what about the emergency of Trump had to look at homeless people when he was being driven to his golf course in Virginia?
That is what some of the people have said. Yeah, some of
That's the real emergency here. Mr. Trump had to look at homeless people.
I think the real emergency is Trump learnt back in the 80s that crime is a menace in Washington, D.C., and that what someone needs is just to punch their face in.
Yeah.
And he's been waiting for 40 years for the opportunity.
Yes.
I think that's the real emergency. But anyway, the law says it's up to the president to make that determination. That's pretty broad language.
Yep.
Also, courts generally give the president the benefit of the doubt when it comes to emergencies. And let's be honest, the emergency here is far less spurious than the emergencies justifying his tariffs. And the Supreme Court gives Trump a lot of discretion when it comes to declaring emergencies, generally speaking. They don't want to overrule the president's determination unless it's super, super blatant. Add that all up, I would say there's a 0% chance of the Supreme Court finding this determination to be illegal. I don't know what you think
probably.
on that.
Yep.
And to be fair, the mayor of DC, Muriel Bowser, she's largely conceded this.
We know, however, as most have heard from the president's press conference, that he has prerogatives in D.C. unlike anywhere else in the country, including his authority given by our home rule charter to require the mayor, to require me to supply services of the Metropolitan Police Department. And he also has control and the ability to deploy the National Guard. But let me be clear, as our home rule charter is also clear, and the president's executive order restates. Chief Pamela Smith is the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, and its 3,100 members work under her direction. The Home Rule Charter requires the mayor to provide the services of MPD during special conditions of an emergency, and we will follow the law.
What are your thoughts, Dave, on this?
Well, I don't know how much you're planning to talk about this, but Muriel Bowser's playing a very interesting game here.
Go for it. You can talk about it now.
Where even though she has said DC's crime rate is at a 30-year low, she's not really that actively resisting what is going on.
Not at all.
In fact, she is welcoming an influx of resources into the MPD.
Yes, I've got that clip as well.
The fact that we have more law enforcement and presence in neighborhoods, that could not, that may be positive if people are, if it's a positive action.
A lot of DC council members are very upset about this. But one of the other interesting things is Trump, in his pronouncements, he hasn't talked about Muriel Bowser.
No.
He has not been slandering her. Usually Trump slandering mayors and slandering governors and the most high-profile opponents, that's what he does. No. He's going after the radical lunatics in DC government who are actually opposed to Muriel Bowser. So Muriel Bowser has been really cooperating with Trump quite a lot this year, tearing down a Black Lives Matter mural because he didn't like it, getting stadium funding through. And now, even though she is putting up this sort of token rhetorical resistance, basically saying DC's not as bad as Trump says it is, she on some level seems to be welcoming parts of the intervention.
Well, one of the things which I'm going to mention a few times is that Washington, D.C. is definitely not the cliche of lawless kind of place.
No, it's not.
Right now, I'm going to mention this several times, there is a curfew, for the children.
Yes.
Like for under 18.
Yeah.
It's been there for a while. That is way harsher than anything Trump has done
Yes.
or has asked for. If Trump did that, people would be going crazy.
Yeah.
But that's already existing in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah. And I mean, DC is, I don't know if you were going to get to this, but it's not even in the top 30 most dangerous cities.
I'm getting to the stats.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
In the United States.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm just trying to think of what this experience is going to be like for people in DC. So the original use of the military was overnight. Now they want it to be 24/7. I mean, I've seen this before in other places. I was in Paris not that long after the Bataclan shooting. And I remember, there would just be soldiers just in groups just marching down the street. And you think, what is the point of that other than showing, yes, we know that a mass shooting happened less than a month ago? What is this actually achieving? Just having these soldiers marching down the street. I think people in DC are going to be wondering the same thing.
I have some footage of this already, which
Okay.
we will get to. We will get to, and not quite yet.
Yes.
One more legal thing before we move on, which is, I'm just sort of skipping ahead a little bit here. After 30 days, just because you can see this already. After 30 days, can Trump renew the emergency? Can you just go on the 31st day, go, new emergency for the next 30 days. And then on the 61st day, go, new emergency.
Yes.
Can you keep on doing that? The Home Rule Act states that no services made available to the president shall extend for any period in excess of 30 days unless the Senate and the House of Representatives enact into law a joint resolution authorizing such an extension. No services.
No services. By the way, I just have to mention for fans of the Civilization franchise, this will remind you of when you can levy troops from city-states. This is basically what Trump's doing. And yes, there is the 30-turn limit on that. As you might be aware, sometimes it can be very useful. Like I do this usually just when I want to move somebody out of the way, but it tends to be, I feel, a pretty expensive way of accomplishing very little.
That's a great note. I don't think he can do more than 30 days.
No.
All right, so then we turn to his announcement, which was completely over the top, kind of silly. First, he said it was coming with, on Monday, a press conference will be held at the White House, which will essentially stop violent crime in Washington, D.C. Let's remember that. Essentially stop violent crime in Washington, D.C. Now, on Monday, he tweeted, Washington, D.C. will be liberated today. Crime, savagery, filth, and scum will disappear. We'll make our capital great again. The days of ruthlessly killing or hurting innocent people are over. And the actual announcement was an American Carnage special.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people, and we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it. Caravans of mass youth rampage through city streets at all times of the day. Well, see, they fight back until you knock the hell out of them because it's the only language they understand. But they fought back against law enforcement last night, and they're not going to be fighting back long because I've instructed them and told them whatever happens, they love to spit in the face of the police as the police are standing up there in uniform. They're standing and they're screaming at them an inch away from their face. And then they start spitting in their face. And I said, you tell them, you spit and we hit. And they can hit real hard.
This is really reminiscent of Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver. One day a real rain's going to come.
This is the thing for me. Like, you just go, was he talking about people spitting? Like he's imagining something from the 80s here. Like, we're talking about if we're worried about crime in Washington, D.C., the crimes are not people spitting at the police inches from their face.
No.
They're not the crimes we're worried about. But anyway, like he's often, I don't know what's going on in his head. But look.
The vast majority of violent crime in Washington, D.C. is happening well away from federal property.
Yes, very much so.
This is a really important point. Where crime in Washington, D.C. is worst, it's not affecting political staffers. It's not affecting members of Congress, and it's not affecting tourists. It's affecting poor long-term residents of the city. That is where the crime problem is in Washington, D.C.
Like every city in America with lots of crime.
Yes.
It's all in a few blocks.
Yes.
And that's not where the rich people live.
No.
So,
No. And like it is bad that happened to big balls. But that's not a typical experience of Washington, D.C. At least for people in the big balls milieu.
And for what's worth, I wouldn't be ripping out the Liberation Day rhetoric if I was Trump after what happened in the last Liberation Day. But anyway, that was his announcement. What he actually did, he signed 2 executive orders. One to declare a crime emergency, whatever the hell that means, and the other to deploy the National Guard in Washington, D.C. And coordinate with state governments for additional guardsmen. He announced 800 guardsmen would be deployed. That's what he did. In the crime emergency executive order, he stated that Pam Bondi would have command of the MPD, and DEA Chief Terry Cole would serve as the interim federal commissioner of the MPD. Remember 2 things at this point. The law says Trump can only use the MPD for federal purposes. He has no control over their local duties.
Yep.
That includes Pam Bondi. Secondly, Trump's concern has never been that there isn't enough policing going on at a local level. It's about the prosecutions.
Yes.
I'll keep coming back to that. Mayor Muriel Bowser, like you said, she thinks there needs to be more police. So she actually was happy with more people coming if it was used in a way that she thought was appropriate.
Yes.
She's been asking for 500 more police for years and still hasn't gotten it from Congress, right? Okay. So do you have anything else to say about the announcement before we get into the question of is Washington crime an emergency or not?
No.
Okay, let's get into this. This is where we get into the stats. Let's start with the executive order. The magnitude of the violent crime crisis places the District of Columbia amongst the most violent jurisdictions in the United States. In 2024, the District of Columbia averaged one of the highest robbery and murder rates of large cities nationwide. Indeed, the District of Columbia now has a higher violent crime, murder and robbery rate than all 50 states. A city is always going to have higher crime rates
Absolutely.
than a state.
Yes.
Because a state includes a whole bunch of areas where no one lives. A lot of cities fit that. But anyway, we'll move on. There are 2 narratives at war here.
Yes.
On the right, you've got people like Steve Miller proclaiming that DC is more violent than Baghdad. He literally said that.
To be fair to Steve Miller, he would be aware that any time he goes into a restaurant in DC, he's at severe risk of eating bodily fluids.
That's true.
That shouldn't really be in restaurant meals. So I can understand why he feels threatened.
It's probably dangerous for him.
Yes.
On the left, you have a constant refrain, which we've already heard Dave mention as well, the 30-year low.
Yes.
That's what we keep on hearing, the 30-year low, 30-year low in violent crime. That's what the Attorney General said. That's what I read out before from his tweet. So which is true?
They can both be true.
They can both be true, but one thing we need to do, and this is one, is we need to examine the main rebuttal of the left used by the right.
Okay.
And that is this news story from 1 month ago.
DC Police Union is putting its allegations on the record tonight, claiming police supervisors in the department are manipulating crime data to make it appear violent crime has fallen considerably when compared to last year. As of today, according to the DC Police website, crime is down 25%, a decrease the chairman of the police union calls preposterous.
So what exactly are their allegations? Let's hear them.
When our members respond to the scene of a felony offense where there is a victim reporting that a felony occurred, inevitably there will be a lieutenant or a captain that will show up on that scene and direct those members to take a report for a lesser offense. So instead of taking a report for a shooting or a stabbing or a carjacking, they will order that officer to take a report for a theft or an injured person to the hospital or a felony assault, which is not the same type of classification.
Greg Pemberton says the police department's command staff is focusing on two categories in order to get the numbers to fall. They are armed with a dangerous weapon, an injured person to the hospital.
When management officials are directing officers to take reports for felony assault, or if they're going back into police databases and changing offenses to felony assault is not a category of crime that's listed on the department's daily crime stats. It's also not something that's a requirement of the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting Program. So by changing criminal offenses from, for example, ADW bat or ADW gun to felony assault, that would avoid both the MPD and the FBI from reporting that as a Part 1 or a felony.
Okay, so that's why I hope you watch or listen to PEP, because I bet you haven't seen that anywhere else. Like a full explanation of what the accusations are. Okay, so to be clear, if those allegations are correct, then the DC violent crime stats have been manipulated in 2025 and maybe in 2024. That's the only thing that has been alleged, that their violent crime stats have been manipulated in the last 2 years, if those complaints are correct from the police union. I don't know what's going on with those allegations. I'm not going to address them. There's no way I can possibly know.
No.
I do find interesting, though, that Trump has been completely disregarding all post-2023 stats. Not just violent crime, all of them. When DC saw big falls in all of the numbers.
Yes.
Murder dropped 32% from 2023 to 2024.
Yes.
Robberies dropped 39%. Armed carjackings dropped 53%. That's completely ignoring the falling violent crime rates. I haven't mentioned them. I'm talking about everything else.
The other thing that makes me think that this isn't all just because of manipulation, even if there is some going on at the margins, is this is consistent with nationwide trends.
Yes, it is. That's right.
Yeah.
I've got the graph. There we go. The one on the left there.
Yeah.
You can see that is the national trend. You can see 2024 has gone down nationally. And so it's no surprise if it goes down in Washington, D.C. as well.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. And we can go further than this. Don't worry. I will be going further than this. I just want to note that Trump, he keeps on just citing 2023 stats for everything.
Yeah.
When the only thing that's contestable is the violent crime. And that's it. Okay. I spoke to Jeff Asher about this exact issue.
Yep.
Jeff Asher is the crime expert's crime expert.
Yep.
Right? He pointed out a lot of stuff.
Okay.
So, he actually, by the way, said he doesn't trust DC's violent crime stats even before those allegations.
Right.
Because he said that they define violent crime in a different way to the FBI.
Okay.
And over time, the FBI and DC, their numbers are getting further and further apart. So he doesn't like their violent crime stats anyway.
Yep.
They're like Jeff Asher. But he did say, for instance, he said that for 2024, the FBI's data shows a 9% drop, while MPDC's public data shows a 35% drop.
Right.
He said he finds the 35% drop unlikely, and the 26% decline this year even less likely. But he noted the national thing, which you also noted. He also noted that you look at the murder and carjacking figures from 2024 and 2025, and they're pretty clear. Let's start with murder. These are the murders for the previous 12 months that you're about to see. There we go. All right. And you can see the drop. The peak is December 2023 there. And you can see since then, they have fallen a lot between December 23 and 22. They've gone from 274 in the previous 12 months in December 2023 to 175 over the previous 12 months now. That's a massive drop. That's almost 50%, that drop. And they're still falling. That's murder. And just to put it in context, let's have a look before 2012. Because 2012 was the bottom of was the valley. Have a look in the 90s. That's what Washington, D.C. used to be like.
Yeah.
And that's when Trump formed his opinion about Washington, D.C., I suspect. In 1991, they had 80.6 murders per 100,000 people. Now it's 27.4. And yet Trump reckons now is the emergency, not 991.
By the way, if you're wondering about that massive spike there in 1986, that's probably the crack epidemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 1986 was the year that Len Bias died and Congress started really piling on the war on drugs legislation. But yeah, there was that I think is the height of the crack epidemic.
And by the way, in 991, Washington, D.C. was the number one murder capital in America. They did have a serious issue then.
But they won the Super Bowl that year.
Good news.
So
you win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's murder. Let's look at carjackings. I got all the graphs here, man. All right, so this is the last 12 months of carjackings. As you can see again, huge spike in December 2023, 959 carjackings per 100,000 people. Now it's 392 per 100,000 people. It's fallen 60% in 18 months.
Poor big balls.
Yeah, he was unlucky. Well, actually, he's really unlucky because in the last month, there were only 16 carjackings reported in DC.
Wow.
That's an 87% drop from July 2023's total, okay? That's the emergency we're in at the moment. And you go, well, carjackings, maybe they're not being reported. No. Carjackings are the most reported property crime because of insurance.
Yes.
So they're stats you can trust.
Yeah.
And no one's contesting them, right? Trump's just trying to ignore them. Okay, so everything else is going down.
Yes.
Is violent crime the only thing not going down? Of course not. But there's other evidence. Shot spotter. You know what shot spotter is, don't you?
No, I don't.
Shot spotter is a technology that listens to gunshots in cities.
Yep.
Right? Not every city has it. Washington, D.C. does.
Yep.
So they actually know the number of times a gun has been fired. Well, at least in the dodgy areas.
Yes.
Right? And ShotSpotter had a 45% drop in results from the first half of 2023 to the first half of 2024, and then another 16% drop to the first half of 2025. Gunshot fires, they usually mirror violent crime.
Yes.
So violent crime, that suggests violent crime is going down.
Yes.
Then we have your national crime point. All right. And by the way, it's not just violent crime. Look at Jeff Ash's dashboard. He's got 9 different measures. They are all going down right now. All the different kinds of crime.
Yeah.
So that's worth taking on. So of course, violent crime is going down, just like everything else is.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Even Trump acknowledges this. And I'll tell you how you know that. Well, at least the Trump administration does.
Yes.
In the same press conference as Trump was saying all this shit, Kash Patel gets up. This is what Kash Patel says.
We are now able to report that the murder rate is on track to be the lowest in U.S. history, in modern recorded U.S. history, thanks to this team behind me and President Trump's priorities.
Of course, this has nothing to do with Trump's priorities. It's been going down for 2 years.
I don't think it's to do with Pete Hegseth either.
Yeah, probably not. But they're now finally choosing to acknowledge what's been happening for ages. It gets funnier.
Yeah.
Hero of the pod, Eagle Ed Martin. Back in April 28, when he was the U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C.
That was about the time that we had that stingray, wasn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes.
He was responsible for this hilarious news item. U.S. Attorney Ed Martin Jr. credits President Trump's first 100 days with a 25% drop in D.C. violent crime. So they were happy to acknowledge the drop in violent crime back then.
Yep.
And they attribute it to Trump. So Trump's people were happy to believe this. Okay. Also, if DC really did have an emergency in violent crime, if there was truly a surge in violent crime, why did FEMA's Urban Security Fund just cut DC security funding by 44%? Why, I ask you? That was 2 weeks ago. And why are Congress still refusing to fund the extra 400 police that Muriel Bowles has been asking for years?
Yes.
Also, by the way, if you go through all those graphs I just showed you, you'll see that many of them are better now than they were in 2017 to 2020 when Trump was first in power and did nothing in Washington, D.C. There's one more thing. What about the juveniles? Because Trump is losing this argument. And so now 30-year lows is, the phrase 30-year lows is everywhere at the moment. So now they're trying to switch the terms of the argument to this.
But as MSNBC was saying that D.C. crime was down, they forgot to put up juvenile crime stats, as if underage crime doesn't count. Because a D.C. father whose child was murdered by a juvenile thinks the crime against his family is very real.
What about juvenile crime, Dave? There were kids. There were kids murdering people, kids carjacking big balls. Well, look, most of the kids aren't murdering people. That's very rare.
Yes.
Most of the kids, at least according to Jeff Asher, are doing carjackings when they're committing crimes.
Yes.
Fewer than 8% of DC arrests were juveniles in 2024.
Yep.
But more than half of the carjacking arrests were juveniles.
Right.
That's what they do.
Yes.
Right? That's where they do their best work. Should we look at the graph of juveniles being arrested for carjackings? We got it all today, Dave. Have a look at that drop-off between the peak was April 2024. Since then, it's fallen from 224 over the previous 12 months to 80 over the previous 12 months. So like all violent crimes, it's fallen off a cliff. Look, just to be fair, the Washington themselves have said that we've had a problem with kids recently.
Yes.
Like the Metropolitan Police Chief Pamela Smith warned we've seen an increase in fights in our schools, more serious criminal offences outside of our schools, seen an increase in juvenile suspects involved in criminal offences district-wide. That was just in April. There have been some notable incidents. There were 2 violent sort of splurges of teen criminal activity in the Navy Yards recently, which got on Fox News on loop. And that's part of the reason there's a curfew for teenagers. So they're doing something about it. They're not doing nothing.
No.
Okay, so that is my case about the stats. Why there is not an emergency, criminal emergency right now. Do you have anything to add to any of that?
Just in terms of, how DC compares to other cities.
Sure. Yes.
So, yes, it is not in the top 30.
I had top 25, as in not in the top 25. I didn't see below that, but I believe you because it wasn't close.
Most dangerous cities in the US.
It's not in the top 50 most dangerous cities in the world either. For that,
no. How many murders were there in DC last year?
It's it's 175 in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
It's 7th in America.
Yeah. See, there was a year when I lived in Ann Arbor when Detroit had 600 murders.
There you go.
With a roughly equal
population
to DC. Like, that was widely acknowledged as a crisis.
But all crime rates have gone down since then.
Yes. Yeah. All crime rates have gone down. I mean, sorry, not to present myself as a murder rate snob because I used to live near Detroit, but that, like, they're certainly compared to other times. And by the way, that was also lower than those kinds of peaks that you were
90s.
getting in the 90s. Just to make the point, that I don't think that this justifies the kind of unprecedented emergency that Trump is invoking.
Yeah, but I mean, just to be fair, it is number 7.
Yeah,
in America, it's one of the higher crime cities in America, right? That is a fact.
Yes,
its murder rate's 7 times higher than New York City's.
Yes,
although don't tell Trump that because he keeps on citing New York City as some hellhole.
Yeah,
and you see stats like black boys are 3 times more likely to die of homicide in DC than in the rest of the country.
Yes.
There's plenty of statistical, it is a high crime. Like, people would pretend there's no crime. That's not true.
Yeah,
there is definitely crime.
It is.
65% of DC residents told Washington Post that crime was a very or extremely serious problem last year. Okay. So what I'm saying is, cracking down on crime, that's not a stupid thing to do. And if Trump actually cracked down on crime, I think, number one, Muriel Bowser would support him in a big way.
Yes.
Because she's trying to herself. And number 2, I probably would if he was doing it legally. It's that's fine. But it's not an emergency. Let's not pretend it's an emergency.
No.
And there's a real question mark over whether he's cracking down on crime at all.
Yeah.
Or in fact, what the hell he's doing. A real question mark there. I should also say, not just in America, but internationally, the White House has been putting up these kinds of charts suggesting that Washington, D.C. is somehow more murder prone than all these dodgy areas around the world. Like for those who can't see it, they've got like the murder rate in Washington D.C. today is greater than Bogota, Mexico City, and more. And it shows Washington D.C. is like twice Bogota and Mexico City, and suggesting Washington D.C. is worse than Mexico, which is ridiculous. Mexico has 6 of the top 10 most murderous cities in the world.
Yeah.
And 16 of the top 50. Oh, I should have done that. 16 of the top 50 most murderous cities in the world are in Mexico. Mexico City ain't one of them.
Yeah.
Mexico City's a safe city.
Yes.
That's why they picked it.
Yes.
Right. Colombia, same deal.
Yes.
It's got a whole bunch of really dangerous cities.
Yeah.
Bogota isn't one of them.
That's right.
That's why they picked Bogota. And then if you look carefully at the other chart, they've got a bunch of cities like London and Paris that Ottawa that no one would suggest are dangerous. But anyway. But the point is, DC is not in the top 50 most murderous cities in the world, and 5 American cities are. But Washington, DC is not one of them.
Yep.
Okay. Take a guess, by the way. Yeah, let's keep on. Let's do another one. Take a guess what the number 1 most murderous city in America is.
Well, I've read that the most dangerous is Memphis.
That is, it's both the most murderous and the most dangerous.
Number 2 on the list I saw was Cleveland.
Yeah.
Number 3 was Toledo, so Northern Ohio really representing
Yes.
there. Number 4, I can't remember. Number 5 was Peoria, Illinois. There was a lot of actually. Number 4, I think, was Springfield, Illinois. Number 5 was Peoria, Illinois.
You're going for extra credit here.
Yeah.
The reason I brought Memphis,
yes,
it has 2.5 times the violent crime rate of DC.
Yeah.
I don't see Trump trying to take over Tennessee.
No.
So, I mean, even if you think that the violent crime rates have been manipulated, they haven't manipulated that much.
No.
2.5 times. All right. Anyway.
Yeah.
Let's then move on to the next section, which is if DC is violent and Trump is essentially stopping violent crime like he said he would and ending the days of ruthless killing, hurting innocent people, is it going to work, what he's doing? Is he going to stop the crime?
I think, and to get back to the point that we were making earlier,
yeah.
I think he's going to make tourist areas
Yes.
and areas around the capital even more sterile than they already are, with the baffling sight of soldiers marching pointlessly around.
Well, but I think it's probably time to start looking at them. These DEA agents just wandering through the National Mall where there is no crime.
Conspicuously less fit than everybody else on the National Mall.
Well, while we're looking at number 27 as well, Lucky, this is some army-looking dudes posing for photos outside the Washington monuments. Yeah, like this is what they're doing because there is a
they're not in Southeast.
No, they're
where
not.
the crime is actually taking place.
There is where there is no crime, but lots of cameras.
Yes.
That's where they are. And when I say they, there aren't that many of them either, because this is what Trump has done. He's placed Pam Bondi and Terry Cole in charge of the police, something which is against the law, mysterious because they know nothing about policing.
Yep.
And they haven't even said what they're going to do, but whatever. And he's deployed 800 National Guard, although the Army themselves say they're only going to actually use 100 to 200 at a time. The police force is 3,100.
Yes.
And they're going to add 100 National Guard. But they've also got 700 random agents, like DEA agents, Park Police agents, FBI agents, all of who aren't police, just wandering around.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what they've done. So let me tell you what happened on night 1 of the surge. Let me quote Carolyn Levitt here.
Yep.
I'm not being unfair. I'm quoting his own press officer.
Yeah.
As part of the president's massive law enforcement surge last night, approximately 850 officers and agents were surged across the city. They made a total of, how many arrests, Dave? Take a guess.
I'm going to guess 8.
23. 23.
Okay.
That's a direct quote. 23 arrests. The DC police averaged 68 a day. out of these, she then read out what the crimes were.
Mm.
Homicide, that's bad.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. Firearms offences, possession with intent to distribute narcotics, fare evasion, lewd acts, stalking,
Lewd acts.
possession of a high-capacity magazine, fleeing to elude in a vehicle, no permits, driving under the influence, reckless driving, and a bench warrant. The homicide, by the way, wasn't from that night. It was an arrest from a previous homicide. Right. Okay. I reckon the fare evasion was from that night. So good stuff, guys.
And the lewd act was probably from that night.
Probably the attempt to elude in a vehicle was from that night.
I have definitely seen lewd acts in DC.
And these aren't convictions, these are just arrests.
Yeah.
So some of them are going to get off. Right. That's what they're achieving. Right. With this, that's what they are saying they're achieving.
It's not the only thing they're achieving. I think it's good exercise for some of those DEA agents.
Sure. But anyway, my point is exactly what you just said. They're not where the crime is. So they're just going to wreck people flashing. Right? There is, I should say, one thing the president could do if he wanted to make a difference.
Yeah.
And he flat out refuses to do it.
What's that?
Which is fund more police.
Yes!
This is the guy who is so against defund the police. He's got Washington, D.C. begging for more police. And he won't do it. This was from his presser.
It's thousands of people. You know, we have thousands of police. I was told today, sir, they want more police. I heard a number 3,500 police. That's a lot of police. 3,500. I thought they were going to say, we only have 30 policemen or women. He said, we have 3,500. We need more. You don't need more. That's so many. I never heard. That's like an army. How could you need more than 3,000? It just happened 2 minutes ago. Sir, they've requested more police. Oh, what do they have? About 3,500. I said, 3,500? This is not a big area. It's ridiculous. What you need is rules and regulations, and you need the right people to implement them. And we have the right people here, that I can tell you.
So once more, it's about the policies and the prosecutions. It's not about the police.
Yes.
By the way, if you don't need more people, why are you surging National Guard and feds in?
Yes.
This makes no sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
What were you about to say?
First of all, he was looking very orange even by his standards.
Yes.
In that. Second, I also just wanted to mention homelessness statistics because this is something he keeps talking about.
That's true.
And this is clearly something that offends him is the sight of homeless people.
I've ignored this, so you should cover this.
So homeless rates in DC, there are reported 800 unhoused people, around 800 unhoused people on any given night in DC. So that's out of a population of 700,000. That's too many people, but again, by the standards of some places, that is not as high as what you would see in a lot of West Coast
Certainly
cities.
not San Francisco.
Yeah. There is a homelessness problem in DC. There's a homelessness problem in just about every American city. But once again, it's not at the kinds of proportions that Trump is suggesting. But Trump's just disgust at the sight of homeless people is obviously operating according to a logic of its own. Yeah.
Like I was saying, he's worried about the policies as much as anything. Like no cash bail. He goes on about this constantly. Of course, he can't change that.
Nope.
Because of the law I just told you before. Neither can Pam Bondi.
No.
That's all local stuff. That's not federal stuff.
Yep.
Congress can, but Trump can't.
Yep.
So he'll just whinge about it a bit. But here's where we get to the big point. Okay, fine. This is a point you saw coming a long time ago.
Yes.
Maybe the prosecutors are too soft.
I think they're too soft.
And he's got the right people to deal with that in Pam Bondi and co. Can you remind me who makes the prosecution decisions in Washington, D.C., Dave? Because I don't think Trump realizes it's the bloody federal government. It's the U.S. attorney for D.C. It was Eagle Ed Martin Jr. for a while there.
Yeah.
Now it's Janine Pirro. And who's in charge of them? Pam Bondi is in charge of them. The person who was just the right person he put in charge of D.C. to fix it all up and change their policies. Also, Who's the one who picks all their judges who are slapping these people on the wrist?
Yeah.
It's the feds. It's not DC.
Mm-hmm.
It's the federal government. They're nominated by guess who? The president. That's who nominates the judges. So if Trump doesn't like it, he should nominate a hard-ass judge. That's his actual job, as opposed to the ones he's trying to take over at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's an irony there.
Yeah. To make another very almost screamingly obvious point, there was a day when there was a very violent crime spree in DC and 5 police officers died as a result. And you know what? A lot of those violent criminals have just been let out of jail.
I know. I didn't even go there because enough people have said that already.
Yes.
but that's fair. It's fair for you to mention that. It's talking January 6th for those who aren't following the thread. Okay, so Dave, let's take a step back then.
Yeah.
How worried should we be? I mean, like, because if you're listening to me,
yes,
I'm saying what they're doing is at least close to legal, closer than most of what Trump does. Right? It's at the very least.
Yeah.
And he's achieving nothing. It's a joke. It's more incompetence than scary authoritarian. That's what I'm saying so far.
Yeah.
So should we? But a lot of people are really scared about this. Should we be scared? Should we not be scared? What's your take?
Look, I found the use of National Guard in Los Angeles, that was in many ways a far more real thing because that was being deployed against protesters as part of a policy initiative of the Trump administration of mass deportation. That was using the National Guard to effectively enforce this policy against political opposition. Even then, most of the time, the National Guard was standing around doing nothing. And I think that there is a huge element of theatre, a really sort of pointless security theatre in this. Symbolically, it is really awful. Symbolically, it is back to this point about black majority cities are irredeemable hellholes. All they have is violence and death. And the only thing that can stop them is just an explosion of authorized violence, right? That's the basic message that Trump is sending. Now, the reality of what he actually then does is very different. It's DEA agents strolling up and down the National Mall looking for an incorrectly defecating dog or something. Symbolically it's awful. And I don't think that you should have the military just wandering around performing civilian functions in a major city. In terms of what's actually going on, though, it's more absurd than scary, I would say.
I despite what I've just told you, I think there are things to worry about here. I'll tell you what they are. I just don't think they're the things that people they're the things that people are worrying about.
Yeah.
First of all, there's going to be more cities.
Yes.
It's not going to end.
Oh
here,
no, absolutely not.
Right. Clearly, Trump's much more interested in taking over blue cities than he is about doing anything constructive.
Yep.
He's got a thirst for this.
Yep.
It's not going to be the last. In the very same presser, he flagged doing the same thing to New York, which has no crime issues. Chicago, San Francisco. I'd play the grabs, but they're full on senility. He wanders around for minutes. I just couldn't do it to you. But trust me, he flagged it. And they're not going to be legal when he does that. The Washington Post has a story this week about how the Trump administration is considering establishing a domestic civil disturbance quick reaction force composed of 600 National Guard troops who are ready to deploy at a moment's notice into any American city. There's going to be 300 sitting in Alabama and 300 sitting in Alaska waiting to be called. That doesn't sound like a one-off to me. It sounds to me like he's planning to make a thing out of this. That's a real concern.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Because, it's legal in D.C. It ain't legal anywhere else.
No.
Secondly, the behaviour he's gunning for and encourages, that's a concern as well.
It is a real concern, yes.
Like right now, people strolling in National Mall, I'm not worried about that. But look what animates him. This spitting thing, beating up people.
Yeah.
Like, that's what animates him. He's clearly attracted to authoritarian behaviour.
And this is going back to the Central Park 5 days.
Absolutely. Do you want to
So Trump was an advocate of the death penalty for the Central Park 5. Okay, so the Central Park 5 were a group of people They were boys at the time. They were teenage boys accused of a very brutal assault on a mugger in Central Park. This was at a time when violent crime was a real problem in New York, so there was a lot of public outrage about this. They were all African American and Puerto Rican. It turns out wrongly convicted. But Trump was calling for the death penalty for them. This was in an incident where a homicide didn't even take place. He's calling for the death penalty. So in terms of his whole view of the world being formed in the 70s and 80s and 90s, this was at a time where he was probably watching the news every day. Every day there would be another story of an African-American or Latino teenager involved in some horrific violent crime. And his response, like the response of a lot of people at the time, was, we need much tougher punishments.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always been about the punishment. And you can just see his worldview has not changed, even though American cities have changed dramatically since then. Yeah.
And even when he doesn't want the death penalty, he does want the police to just go around smacking them. He wants police brutality.
Yes.
And do you think bad cops aren't watching that? Of course they are. And they will know better than anyone that if they're federalized, he can pardon them.
Yes.
And he will pardon them.
Yes.
And it's going to get worse.
The best strategies for fighting violent crime, and this has worked in New York and in other places, to do with police having deep relationships with the communities that they're actually involved with. It involves communities actually trusting police, and it involves police developing capacities to prevent violence before it happens. In order to do that, they have to have a good idea of who the violent actors are and who they can intervene with to stop violence from actually happening. That requires a lot of community trust to get that kind of information. In the original version of broken windows policing, before it was transformed into zero tolerance, an arrest was regarded as a failure. Right? If you had an arrest, that meant you had failed to prevent violence before it actually happened. Now, I don't know with the kind of police resourcing picture today whether that kind of community policing is really possible anymore. But all that this can do is undermine trust and credibility. People aren't going to feel safer just because the police are now allowed to use more violence.
It's 100% possible because when I spoke to Jeff Asher this week, I also interviewed him for a piece I'm doing for Plain America in 2 weeks' time about Baltimore, about the crime rate going down in Baltimore.
Yes.
I was asking him about strategies in Baltimore and in other areas in America that seem to work. And he was talking about that kind of thing.
Yes.
They still do it.
Yes.
So
good.
There you go.
By the way, if you're interested in Baltimore and in a picture of what violent crime was like at those absolute peaks, I highly recommend The Corner. So The Corner is written by David Simon and Ed Burns, who went on to create The Wire. When you read it, it's a piece of journalism, but you will basically see the Wire universe. And it was based on a year of investigative reporting in Baltimore, I think in 1990. And the opening passage of the book is New Year's Eve going into 1990. You write about everyone on this block just coming out of their houses and firing guns into the air. It's an amazing opening to,
ShotSpotter had a big day.
ShotSpotter would have had a huge day. But put The Corner on the reading list because, and it's in the context of, this was sort of at the tail end of the crack epidemic. It really just goes into how people in those crime-plagued and drug-plagued neighborhoods actually lived and survived and in some cases thrived or in some cases barely got by and in many cases died. But just about what the whole social structure was actually like in those places. Yeah.
My final thought on this, where I think is something to worry about, is that the reaction to this has disturbed me, to be honest.
Yep.
Just how overwhelmingly positive it has been from his supporters. And not for the right reasons, for all the wrong reasons.
Yes.
It hasn't been because they've been misled into thinking he's actually cracking down on crime. And people going, oh, great. Yeah, here's a problem area. Let's fix it. Yeah, it hasn't been like that. It's been like, yeah, let's kick some ass. Yeah, they got what's coming to them. Yeah. Why don't you take a walk through this area here and you'll get murdered? Like, it was a great example of what I'm talking about was this tweet from Christopher Rufo, who's a supposed intellectual on the right, right? I couldn't believe it. Trump has the opportunity to do a Bukele-style crackdown on DC crime. Question is whether he has the will and whether the public the stomach. Big test. Can he reduce crime faster than the left advances a counter-narrative about, in inverted commas, authoritarianism? If yes, he wins. Speed matters. Okay, so this is very dumb. First of all, you won't know the stats from this operation for months, long after the narrative has been set either way. So it's a ridiculous test. Let's leave that aside for a second. He wants a Bukele-style crackdown, he says, but he worries that the left will advance a counter-narrative of, in inverted commas, authoritarianism. So he's implying that a Bukele-style crackdown is not authoritarianism.
No.
Not really.
Or at least it won't be deemed authoritarian if it reduces crime.
Yeah.
Bukele has reduced crime in El Salvador.
Big time.
Nobody disputes that. But also nobody disputes that it's authoritarian.
The man, for those who aren't seeing what I'm talking about, the man has a gulag where he tosses people for life in without charges and tortures them, including his political opponents. He dominates the press. He dominates the courts. He dominates their Congress. He just got them to allow him to rule indefinitely. If he's not authoritarian, then who the hell is? This guy.
He refers to himself as the world's coolest dictator.
Yes. So what that tells me, that Rufo is writing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's a one out here. I think he is emblematic of a mindset.
Yeah.
Is that he will never say no.
No.
He will never say no. There is literally nothing that a Republican leader could do to an ideological opponent that Christopher Rufo would say, no, that's too far, that's too authoritarian. Because Bukele doesn't meet the bar.
No.
So nothing's going to meet the bar.
No.
And that to me is scary. Because I also don't think it's just Republicans. I think that what we're seeing here are the wages of polarization.
Yes.
And I want to read you a quote, which I saw this week. It was actually a quote from Nick Catogio, one of my favorite writers I talk about a lot. He was quoting Andrew Sullivan. But this is the quote from Andrew Sullivan. The forces we are up against are far beyond Trump. They're called the cycles of history. And the critical mass of the American people who no longer want to govern themselves, who are sick of this republic, and who no longer want to keep it if it means sharing power with those they despise. I think he's right. And that concerns me a lot. Right now, it manifests itself through Trump, most clearly. But it won't end there. There's going to be, the pendulum's going to swing the other way. And it really worries me. And it just so happened this week that one of my favorite people in the world, Dan Carlin, completely had a freak out, like a huge Trump freak out. And it made me sad because people treat him like he's some foam mouth activist. He's not. He's just a guy who's just had enough. And I understand where he's coming from. I sometimes feel like that, but I'm conscious of the fact that I have a platform where if I freak out, I can't be persuasive. And I will drive people away.
You will not see any freakouts on PEP.
I'm hoping you won't. Like, because if you look at the comments underneath Dan Carlin's tweets, it's very clear he just lost his own audience.
Yeah.
And that's a shame because he's a brilliant person who can be persuasive, really persuasive, and he lost the ability to persuade because he freaked out. So I'm not going to freak out, but I understand where he's coming from, and I really worry that his freak out is justified for those reasons. Anyway, do you have anything to add on this topic?
No.
Can you talk about Ukraine?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we are recording this the day before the summit between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump in Alaska is due to take place.
Yeah.
Now, these summits between US and Russian leaders are relatively rare. The last one was in Helsinki in 2018. And I think there have only been 4 such meetings since 2001. and certainly, obviously, extremely rare since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. You'll recall that the background to this is that Trump, over the last few weeks, had seemed to take a much harder line against Putin. He was persuaded to allow more American weapons to go to Ukraine via European sales. It seemed that Zelensky was kind of getting the upper hand in the meetings that he was having. He also was saying that Putin wasn't trustworthy, essentially, in all kinds of ways.
He established a deadline for
He
Putin.
established a deadline, which
Not for Zelensky, for Putin.
For Putin,
yeah.
Which would have pretty severe economic consequences in terms of not just primary sanctions, but secondary sanctions as well, or very, very high tariffs anyway, which effectively would have been sanctions. Then we got the news that Trump was going to meet Putin without Zelensky in Alaska. Initially, there were claims from the White House that Trump was putting a condition on it that Putin had to meet Zelensky first. That condition got dropped very quickly. Okay, so this is just going to be a meeting between Trump and Putin at the Elmansdorf Air Base in Anchorage, Alaska. Sorry, there's another name in front of Elmansdorf.
Okay.
So before we get into what might happen at this summit, let's just look at why Alaska. Okay, because the immediate symbolism that people latched onto was this used to be a part of Russia.
Yeah.
And I've got a photo of this that I took myself. I took this in 2014.
Yeah.
This is a church perched on a cliff that overlooks a fishing village on the Cook Strait called Ninilchik in Alaska. This is a Russian Orthodox church, as those of you who can see the photo will be able to see from the Orthodox crosses in the graveyard. You might also be able to see sort of little mini onion domes on the top of the church there, even though it's quite a small wooden church. And I remember seeing this as we were driving along the highway, just seeing this Russian Orthodox church with these gleaming golden onions just perched on this cliff in far-flung Alaska. It's an incredible sight. Alaska has more Russian Orthodox churches than anywhere else in America because of the fact that it was a Russian colony and there were Russian Orthodox missionaries there. So today, the Russian Orthodox faith in Alaska is actually mainly practiced by Native Alaskans who were missionized, or the descendants of those who were missionized. I really love Alaska, by the way. The 4 days that I spent in Alaska was one of the greatest tourism experiences of my life. I would highly recommend it. Alaska, as I've said before, is the western state that all the other western states like to think they are, but they're not. This is the real frontier state. This is the state with the highest mountains and the most ferocious wildlife and the entire population of people who seem to be on the run from somewhere else. Like, this is the real West. Anyway, Alaska is great, but is it a great location to hold a summit like this? The reason why, there are a couple of reasons why it's being held here. It's not because it used to be Russian territory, but it's vaguely related to that. It is proximate to Russia. So Anchorage is kind of like a halfway point, almost, between Moscow and Washington, D.C. I think it's 7,000 miles from Moscow and 5,000 and something from Washington, D.C. It takes about 9 hours to fly there from Moscow and about 8 hours to fly there from D.C. So it's not a neutral site. Clearly, it's on American soil, but it is kind of a symbolic halfway point. And most of the big summits that have taken place between American and Russian leaders, they always happen somewhere close to the Arctic Circle, whether that's Helsinki or Reykjavik or... But very importantly, that means to get there, Putin doesn't have to fly over any country that is a signatory to the International Criminal Court, which has an arrest warrant out for him.
Right.
Yeah, so it is very far from Europe. Right, and very far from Ukraine.
Yes.
And the Europeans and Ukrainians are not involved in these negotiations at all. Oh, I meant to throw in a trivia question.
Yeah.
3-part trivia question.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay, so as you may know, it's one thing. If Alaska was Russian territory, how did the United States get it? Well, they bought it.
Yep.
Okay, this is one of the last big
That's
instances of a major territorial acquisition by sale.
Yeah, for not much either.
Yeah, well, okay, so the three questions. How much was it?
Oh, damn it.
What did that amount to per acre? And what would it amount to in today's money?
Okay. All right, geez. Okay, I'm not getting multiple choice. All right, okay. I don't remember the number, but I remember it was really not much.
Yeah.
I am going to say, I'm trying to even think what the year was. It was
1867.
Okay, thank you. I was about to say about the 1890s.
Secretary of State who organised it was William Seward.
Okay, 1867. I am going to say it was $20.
No, it's a little bit more than that. It was $7.2 million.
Oh, okay.
But that amounts to 2 cents an acre.
Yeah.
But back in the continental United States, this was considered such an extravagant overpurchase of worthless land that this was known as Seward's folly.
They wanted to pay $20.
Yeah. Remember, this is before people had discovered oil as all of the properties of oil that we now know.
But your third question was, how much is that worth today?
How much is that worth in today's dollars?
7.2 million was what it was worth in 1867.
Yep.
Okay. I am going to say that there has been, let's say, 20 times inflation. So I'm going to say about 150 million.
That is absolutely right.
Yeah.
About $150 million. To put that into perspective, Trump's White House ballroom renovations are projected to cost $200 million.
Very good.
Dollars.
Very
okay.
good.
So it is happening in I think another advantage of having it on an Air Force base in Alaska is that probably minimizes the number of protesters that there are likely to be.
Yeah, I think they.
If this was in any city, there'd be like a bunch of protesters waving handcuffs around.
There'd be a lot of spitting happening.
Yeah.
The police faces.
Yeah. No, I mean, Anchorage is a city, but I think the Air Force Base is a little bit outside it, and they'll be able to keep it under control.
I think they'll be okay.
But can you imagine if he'd announced Greenland as the location for this meeting?
I'm sure someone considered it.
Yeah, I'm sure someone considered it. Oh, that leads me to another trivia question.
Oh, yeah?
Which very famous novel that was made into a Netflix series ends in Greenland?
God, no, Three Body Problem?
Nope. Lockie?
We were talking about this before. Heartbreak High.
I hope you guys can hear what Lockie just said. Because that was Lockie's finest hour.
Did that get picked up? No, it's The Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, right.
Yes. The Handmaid's Tale concludes with everything that's been happening in the narrative has been happening it's being poured over at an academic conference. It's historical documents that they're looking at. And the academic conference is taking place in Greenland because the suggestion is global warming has gone so far that Greenland is now a nice holiday destination.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Do you have more things to say about this?
About the actual summit,
Yes.
Okay, so people were very, very worried about this because Trump was talking about land swaps being the solution. Land swaps.
Yes.
Currently, Russian forces occupy 18 or 19% of Ukrainian sovereign territory. Currently, Ukraine operates 4 square miles of Russian sovereign territory. They did have a bit more. They had 500 square miles at one point, but they've lost most of it.
I think we all understand when Trump says land swaps, he doesn't mean Ukrainian land for Russian land. He means Ukrainian land that Ukraine holds for Ukrainian land that Russian holds.
That's right. Yes. So people were obviously very worried about that. They were worried about the way that he was talking about Zelensky. He'd gone back to being very dismissive of Zelensky. When people were asking him why wasn't Zelensky invited, Trump was saying, well, he's had 3.5 years to make a deal. Clearly he can't get it done.
And I think Trump didn't like as well that Zelensky was saying that the Constitution won't allow us to accept.
That's
land
right.
swaps.
Yeah. And he was saying, he says the Constitution won't allow land swaps. Well, they better sort something out very quickly because a deal is just around the corner.
Yeah, and also, the Constitution allows them to go around killing everyone, he says.
Yeah.
Like Zelensky's the one who's going around killing everyone.
Yeah.
And I get along with Zelensky, but, I disagree with what he's done. Very, very severely disagree. This is a war that should have never happened. I was a little bothered by the fact that Zelensky was saying, well, I have to get constitutional approval. I mean, he's got approval to go into war and kill everybody, but he needs approval to do a land swap.
But anyway, so he was strongly suggesting that he would actually do a deal with Putin. And he was saying, I'll know within the first 2 minutes of this meeting whether it's possible to do a deal or not, because that's what I do. I do deals. Now, as we've explained in great depth on PEP before, he doesn't really do deals. He does announcements of deals. Very few of them have gotten through to the stage of, say, a contract or a law, something that would actually bind the parties involved to the commitments that they're actually making. But people were very, very worried about what was he going to walk away with from this with Putin, because the last time they met in 2018, Trump came out of that meeting saying Putin says that there was no Russian electoral interference, and you know what? I believe him. He says it wasn't Russia.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. That was one of the many places where Trump's fixation on maybe Ukraine was responsible for the hacking began.
And people were also worried about the fact that Witkoff, his envoy and negotiator, had 3 different interpretations of what Russia had suggested in 3 separate days.
Yes.
Every day he came with a new one because he doesn't take notes and he doesn't speak Russian.
Yeah.
And so he kept on reinterpreting his own view of what Putin had told him.
Yes.
Yeah.
However, things have changed a little bit since then.
Oh, in the last 10 hours since I've been reading?
Well, no. I'm talking about more in the last few days.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so there have been some developments in the last few days.
Yep.
One is that Trump has really started tamping down expectations for this meeting. And I think the reason is because they see that Putin is not actually particularly ready to deal at the moment. Russia has, just in the last few days, made some really serious battlefield gains, which is
a big one.
Doing that right before these negotiations, that doesn't suggest that they're going to fall back to a position of, okay, let's finally make a deal to end the war, because they think that they can get more. Russia's, if ever there was any, sniff of Russia actually offering some kind of terms for a ceasefire, it was definitely going to be Ukraine had to give up all of Donbass. Over the last few days, we've seen J.D. Vance on his holiday/diplomatic excursion to the UK. He seems to be suggesting that's not what would be the starting point from the US. It would be where the current lines of control actually are, because that's something that people were very worried about, that Ukraine might be forced to give up territory that Russia hasn't even occupied.
According to the polls I've seen, that's a big deal for Ukrainians.
Yes.
Like Ukrainians are expecting to have to give up land.
Yeah.
But they're not expecting to have to give up land.
Not expecting
that hasn't
to give
been
up.
conquered.
Yeah. Now, we've said before that not only is the fact that Ukraine doesn't want to give up land an obstacle, also, from my point of view, I think the war ending with Russia just being able to hold on to what it's got, I think that would leave Putin in a much weaker position politically than he is in now. I think if that was the outcome of the war, if that was the outcome of the war ended, he had to dismantle the war economy, and then all of this sacrifice has been for 19% of Ukrainian sovereign land. As I said, I don't think that's politically difficult for Putin.
I'm sure he'd find a way.
Which is why, but it would become more costly for him, especially after he's rearranged the entire economy around war. Yes, and then there was a meeting, and I don't know if you're up on this. Well, it was a video call between Trump and European leaders, which Zelensky was then brought into, and all of the European leaders and Zelensky came away from that talking very positively.
I haven't seen that yet.
Okay, yeah. Now, we're, Don't know if any kind of guarantees were made or anything, but then since then Trump has started talking again about how he can't really get Putin to do anything. And so not only have the expectations for the meeting been lowered, it does seem that the Europeans and Zelensky have managed to get back into Trump's ear about what would actually be reasonable. Okay, so they now hope that Trump wouldn't be agreeing to any kind of deal that just involves Ukraine giving up territory for nothing in return, which is what they were worried about. Obviously, one of the biggest things that Ukraine wants, in addition to having to give up as little land as possible, is really solid security guarantees.
Yep.
It's very hard to see what those would look like at the moment.
Especially because Russia doesn't want to give them anything.
Yeah. Russia doesn't want to give them anything. They wouldn't trust anything that Russia would give them. Proposals about European troops in Ukraine don't really seem to be going anywhere, and you can see why European countries wouldn't be that hot on that. Ukraine joining NATO still seems to be like a pipe dream, or at very least sort of very long way off. There's kind of a perception that only the US could actually provide security guarantees, but again, it's not clear what they would look like.
This also ties into the land issue because if they gave up land that hasn't been conquered yet, they'd be giving up their defense lines.
Yes, absolutely.
So they've got these highly fortified defense lines. If they give up those defense lines, it makes it much more vulnerable to a future attack.
Yes.
Which means they need a much stronger security guarantee.
Yep. Peace doesn't look particularly close at this point, is what I'm saying. Hopefully I'll be proven wrong.
Take that Nobel off that man.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's going to happen at this summit. There are, more traditionally security-minded analysts are worried about the prospect of a summit this big with this little preparation, where there is such a strong possibility that nothing will result from it. Okay, so all of last week they were worried about this being another Munich. That threat seems to have receded in security world mind, but what they're worried about is that this is every time there's a summit like this, it involves an expenditure of symbolic capital, right? This is the President of the United States agreeing to meet with the leader of another very powerful country. If nothing happens, that means the president hasn't been able to achieve anything from it. They've going to the extent of welcoming Putin to the United States of America, which that's a big symbolic gain for Putin, right? He can go to the most powerful country in the world. He's not going to get arrested there. Putin, I think, still has dreams of Trump can be won over by promising massive energy and mineral deals. Partnerships, would be the correct term. Now, I don't think he's going to achieve that, but he's still got the symbolic capital of being able to go to the United States and not getting arrested, of being at a table where Zelensky is not and the European leaders are not. And a lot of security and diplomacy analysts would argue if you're going to give him that kind of capital, you want to get something massive in return. And if the outcome of the meeting is just nothing, that just leaves it as a huge symbolic victory for Putin and nothing else. On that note,
Sounds like an outpoint.
I am going to need to go.
Thank you, Dave.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, as always, for all of the pronunciations I have butchered, all of the geographic missteps that I have made. But, that's the reality of podcasting.
Thank you very much, Dave. We will be back after the white flash, after Lockie's done a bit of an edit. I'll see how many minutes are left, and then I'll fill it up. See you then. Welcome to the other side of the white flash. This is the Lockie Zone.
Whoa, after my finest moment, I've already been burned this episode.
That was a great moment. This is obviously the day after we recorded the first part. Trump is already making noises about trying to do the DC thing in other cities, as I feared he would, and going past the 30-day limit in DC. So let me just make it clear. I become a lot less relaxed about this takeover if Trump starts clearly breaking the law, which he wasn't doing yesterday, but we're moving towards it now. We should be expecting him to do this by now, I guess. There's no surprises. Also, Newsom did use his presser, as I suggested, to plough ahead with his gerrymander. He'll try to get 5 more seats for Democrats. Apparently, we'll see how that works out. I did foreshadow what might be coming there. A couple of quick things. We have 2 things I'm going to try and squeeze in. Number 1, update on the BLS. Obviously, I'm obsessed with the BLS commissioner being sacked. We spoke quite a lot about that sacking last week. Trump kept going with justifying himself that weekend. He got his old mate Stephen Moore to pitch for him in the Oval Office.
Because this shows that over the last 2 years of the Biden administration, the BLS overestimated job creation by 1.5 million jobs. Mr. President, that's a gigantic error. And I don't know if she's...
It might not have been an error. That's the bad part. If it was an error, it would be one thing. I don't think it's an error. I think they did it purposely.
Whether that, you may well be right, but even if it wasn't purposefully, it's incompetence.
Right.
What they've done there is they've just added up the public figures for revisions over a 2-year period. That just means they've added up multiple revisions of the report as if they're separate figures when it's the same month, like 3 times. So they're triple counting, right?
Yeah.
It's just hackish. It's Steve Moore, I guess. And they package it up like it's secret new revealing numbers. It's just not. We've explained why those errors are there, and that those errors are much smaller than they actually appear when you put them in proper context. It's just stupid. It's infuriating too because he gets away with this kind of thing. I want to show you a graph just to show you what I'm talking about. Look at this graph. These are the BLS's errors in orange, like basically 0 as a percentage, compared to the leading private payroll company, ADP's errors in blue. Look how much more errors the private payroll company makes than BLS. The BLS does a good job. It does. ADP's median error was 9.2%. BLS's median error was 0.29%. The BLS's worst miss in 14 years was 0.97%. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that lack of error because the BLS is about to be torn apart. More on that in a second. We got correspondence about the effect that dodgy stats might have on investment from Lost Stack. Dave's only half right. Dodgy figures out of China don't stop investment. What it does do is raise interest rates and cause short-term profit extraction to be maximised. Governments can screw with statistics and act erratically and all these things, and they'll still have investments. They just have more investments if they're stable and predictable. The best example I know is in resource projects. You can still get investment to build a mine in Argentina or Bolivia, but they'll have a crazy return of 33% a year to pay the investors back for the risk the government imposes on the projects. This has serious effects as it changes how a project will be mined. A project might run for 5 years in these countries, whereas it will run for 15 and be larger in a stable environment like Australia or Canada. That's 10 years of local jobs and local community investment that were forfeited due to government raising risk profiles. I'm not saying it's going to be that bad in America, but it's not zero risk. I thought that was a good comment, so I want to share that. And Adjusted says the discrediting and potential manipulation of economic data is scary shit. If this escalates, I suspect some of the strongest resistance might actually come from big business, the banking and finance sector, and the broader economic elite. These guys operate on long time horizons. They know they'll be here long after the administration's gone. For them, credibility in economic reporting isn't political, it's their reputation, and they know it's the bedrock of market stability. If they start parroting, let alone being comfortable relying upon numbers that are obviously cooked, they risk undermining the very system they rely on. I wonder if that would be the case, Adjusted, because this week Trump nominated his new BLS commissioner. His name is E.J. Antoni. He's a young dude. He got his PhD about 5 years ago from the University of Northern Illinois. Some of you may know him. Do you know him at all? Have you heard of him?
You said E, and I thought you were going to say Eagle Ed Martin.
No. Sadly, this isn't an eagle. They're not going to play the sting. He's a chief economist at the Heritage Foundation. That's what he's best known for. His dissertation has been cited in scholarship once by a non-profit that he used to work for. By comparison, the person he's replacing, Mick and Tafa, her work's been cited 1,327 times.
So what's that on a graph?
Yeah, it'd be quite a graph. I know him primarily as a punching bag for liberal economists on Twitter. For the last 5 years or so, he's tried to spin every single economics report as hard as he can against Democrats and towards Republicans. He's a massive hack. Sometimes he does it so badly. Literally less than a month ago, he revealed he didn't know how the import price index worked with one of his critiques. He clearly didn't understand it. I knew it was wrong when I looked at that tweet just off the top of my head. I shouldn't be the BLS commissioner, let me tell you. He's a scary pick. He thinks America's been in recession since 2022. He's an idiot. Anyway, he's one of those unskew the data types. He reinterprets graphs with partisan spin. And I'll quote 3 people for you, just so you just don't think it's my opinion. Jason Furman. He did work for Obama. He was the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors under Obama, but he's a very non-partisan person. The left hate him because he criticizes democratic economics all the time. This is what he said. I don't think I've ever publicly criticised any presidential nominee before, but E.J. Antoni is completely unqualified to be BLS commissioner. He's an extreme partisan and does not have any relevant expertise. He'll be a break from decades of non-partisan technocrats. Then his replies were filled with people saying things like, cry harder, lib, and shit like that, which just makes me even more depressed. Jessica Riedel, we've had her on PEP. She's great. Senators who vote to confirm Antoni are voting to essentially eviscerate the BLS and its jobs data. And they're going to. They'll vote for him. And Stan Vega, who's a senior fellow in economic policy at the American Enterprise Institute, he's a conservative, okay? This guy is a conservative. He's utterly unqualified and as partisan as it gets, is what Vega says. As far as qualifications go, Antoni, I told you, he got his PhD 5 years ago. He's received no distinction. He's never published a paper outside his dissertation. He's never done any research on labour markets or data collection. He's made no impact outside being at the Heritage Foundation. Look, he's not Laura Loomer, okay? So there are small mercies here. But in terms of picking an actual economist, he's one of the worst picks Trump could make. So I stand by my feeling that he can't literally change the numbers on BLS stats, but I'm getting nervous. And adjusted, not a peep from business so far. Not a peep. They've just accepted it. In fact, the stock markets went up when he was announced. Let's wait for results. We'll see. A P writes, if I was the incoming BLS chief and I didn't want to get fired, one option I would consider would be not publishing the preliminary estimates. Only publish the final estimate. That means there's only one estimate for each reference month. No revision to speak of. That could be up or down and draw Trump's ire. Unfortunately, this would mean everyone, including the Fed, would have to wait an extra month or 2 months to get the jobs numbers. So the Fed wouldn't have the latest information available when making interest rate decisions. To be clear, I don't think this change would be good. The reason the BLS publishes preliminary estimates is because they're good estimates and the revisions are small. So getting preliminary numbers out much earlier is worthwhile, but this might be the trade-off that the BLS makes when their revisions are drawing so much attention. You're a genius, Epi. You're a horrible genius. Because in an interview with Fox Digital last week, Antoni said, until it's corrected, the BLS should suspend issuing the monthly job reports but keep publishing the more accurate, though less timely, quarterly data. Major decision makers from Wall Street to DC rely on these numbers, and a lack of confidence in the data has far-reaching consequences. You're absolutely right, Epi. Epi's also right. The Fed needs to make pretty important decisions 8 times a year, so they need new info for those decisions. Stephen Moore, if we trust him, has said that Antoni has now walked back that idea. We shall see. And one more I'll try and squeeze in here. We might go over 300. We'll see. Nvidia makes up, they're a chip company. They make up 92% of global
computer
graphics.
Chip company.
Yeah, that's true. Not the best kind of chip company. They make up 92% of global graphics processing units on the market. AMD makes up the other 8%, okay? The Biden administration placed export controls on advanced semiconductors, they're the things that are in computer chips, in 2022 and 2023. The idea was to keep America's advantage over Chinese tech and military applications, but also in AI, especially in AI. Chip makers were ordered not to sell semiconductors or just computer chips to China that exceeded certain performance thresholds. One of the things that was controlled for was the H100 chip made by Nvidia, which was the state-of-the-art chip at that point in time. So Nvidia and AMD made an inferior chip that was just below those performance thresholds that they just sold to China. Turned out the slightly worse chip was perfect for AI. That's the H20. China loved it, and they bought them all up, and Nvidia did great business in China with the H20 chip. They netted about $23 billion in revenue from the Chinese market in the last few years. China's 13% of Nvidia's total sales now, 24% of AMD's total revenue in 2024. Security experts started petitioning for the H20 chips to be controlled as well, to keep America ahead on AI. You can understand that. Matt Pottinger, who was the Deputy National Security Advisor for Trump in his first term, 19 other security experts said the H20 was a potent accelerator of China's frontier AI capabilities and would ultimately be used by the Chinese military. So they suggested put a ban on that as well. In April 2025, Trump went with them, and he placed export controls on the H20 as well. Okay. This annoyed China because without H20s, Chinese companies cannot keep up with demand, impeding China's progress in AI. This might have driven part of China's crotchety trading situation with America over the last few months. They wanted those chips. Then Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang, at the same time as China was putting pressure on America through trade methods, he paid $1 million to MAGA Inc. to dine with Trump at Mar-a-Lago.
Just a normal dinner cost.
Yeah, that's what my fried sandwiches down the road cost me, $1 million a pop. In June, Huang then met again in the White House, and Trump changed his mind amazingly after that dinner. But since then, the Bureau of Industry and Security, they're the arm of the Commerce Department that runs export controls. They have not issued any licenses, even though seemingly they were supposed to. So Huang met up with Trump again last week, and now they get export licenses. Apparently, the deal is they only get them, though, if they pay 15% of the H20 chip sales proceeds to America. AMD's doing the same. So effectively, it's a 15% export tax to China for these chips, right? What's the problem with that? Trump's just done a deal for America, yeah? Well, it's completely unconstitutional, for one, because Congress is supposed to raise revenue.
Right.
Not the president.
Yeah.
It's Article 1 of the Constitution, okay? It also says no tax or duty shall be laid on articles exported from any state. So export taxes are illegal, full stop, even for Congress. Export controls, not export taxes, export controls were only authorized by Congress for security reasons. They limit foreign access to potentially dangerous materials and technologies. That's what they were doing before. But Trump has exploited this security measure that the president is allowed to employ to extort companies for revenue. That's what he's done here. It's extortion. He's saying, if you don't give me 15%, you don't get your export control.
Whoa.
Exactly. That's not his constitutional role, and it's not legal anyway. And it seems kind of like blackmail, I have to say. I know he's immune, but it seems kind of like blackmail. There's security concerns here too. China's expected to spend $98 billion on developing AI this year, $56 billion of which comes from the Chinese government. America was trying to retain an edge over China in this area. Trump's own administration has determined that China shouldn't get access to this technology. They decided that 2 months before.
Yeah.
And Trump's given it up for a few $1 billion. No American company has ever agreed to pay a portion of their revenues to obtain export licenses, ever in history. Well, how could they if it's unconstitutional? But if he gets away with this, why would they be the last? It's free money.
Yeah.
The president can raise free money for a slush fund. That's what he's doing here. Administrations could do this over and over again. Use their security powers to ban something that a company really wants. They don't even need a good reason. Just say security. And then extort them to pay for it. They could just do this forever. They could just, they could put a security ban on the secret herbs and spices for KFC, and then go, if you want them, you're going to pay us a tax. This was Trump's response.
The administration agreed to send the most advanced or advanced Nvidia and AMD chips.
No, obsolete. No.
Obsolete chip. Well, and then 15% of the profits.
You mean the 20s? No. This is an old chip that China already has. And I deal with Jensen, who's a great guy, and Nvidia. The chip that we're talking about, the H20, it's an old chip. China already has it in a different form, different name, but they have it. Or they have a combination of two will make up for it and even then some. Now Jensen's a very brilliant guy, and Jensen also has a new chip, the Blackwell. Do you know what the Blackwell is? The Blackwell is super duper advanced. I wouldn't make a deal with that, although it's possible I'd make a deal, a somewhat enhanced in a negative way Blackwell. In other words, take 30% to 50% off of it. But that's the latest and the greatest in the world. Nobody has it. They won't have it for 5 years. But the H20 is obsolete. You know, it's one of those things, but it still has a market. So I said, listen, I want 20% if I'm going to approve this for you, for the country, for our country, for the U.S. I don't want it myself.
Let's be fair here. Trump is saying there are no security implications because there is a new chip that is much better that China will not get access to. Okay, so Trump is thinking, if we trust him, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, a nice guy. If we trust him, he's thinking there's no security issues here. This is an old chip that we don't care about. There are better chips. We'll worry about them. That's the giving him the benefit of the doubt. Even though security guys seem to disagree. Yeah. But anyway, he says the H20 is obsolete. So if he's right, the H20 is obsolete, why is China so desperate to get them? Why is China willing to pay through the nose to get them? Why? Is China just really dumb? Maybe Trump is right and Trump knows best. Maybe. I'd be worried about what China's thinking. Even if they're wrong, why does Trump keep on charging private companies extra taxes for no reason? That creates costs for everyone. They pass them on. He's turned the government into a leech. Export taxes are not only illegal, they're incredibly inefficient. This is reminiscent of the US steel situation I told you about a few weeks back, where Trump only allowed a sale to occur, a private sale to occur, when the government got a slice of power out of it. It's the same thing again. In this case, again, a slice of money out of it. He's arrogating unconstitutional power to himself, openly accepting bribes and threatening any company that doesn't please him with taxes that are illegal that he's just making up. And ironically, it's a bit like China. The Chinese government's constantly getting in the way of businesses in China and interfering and trying to take a slice out of everything themselves. That's a real Chinese move right there from Trump. So, I don't know, mate. Like, I understand why you say I'm doing this for America, but like, America's not meant to be like this. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And before this year, Republicans didn't like it either. So I don't know what's going on, but I'm out of time. I just wanted to share those two stories with you because they're kind of also linked a little bit in terms of just Trump doing dubious things as moving America further and further away from where it's meant to be into this weird kind of semi-Chinese authoritarian kind of place. I don't like it. Anyway, Lockie, you got any thoughts you want to share on any of this before we get out of here?
I'm just wondering, how old is this EJ guy?
Look, I don't know his actual age because he hasn't done enough to have an age on Google, but because I did check it out. Yeah. I'd be guessing he'd be early 30s, probably 32, 33.
That's exactly what I was going to say because he's using letters as his name. Yeah. The only person I know who's doing that right now is JD.
Yeah, it's a young Republican thing.
I'm a young Republican guy. Refer to me as letters, please.
Yeah, I guess this is the Republican version of like 100 years ago. You had sort of wanker lefties did their initials, but just as small letters.
Oh yeah,
This is the modern Republican version of that.
I'll tell you what it really means. Yeah. It means Elon Musk's kid XAE12 straight to the White House.
That's great news for us all, Lockie. Here we go, 2028. You might go, it's unconstitutional. He's not 35 yet. He's only like 4. But who cares about the Constitution these days, Lockie?
I'm pretty sure they'll age differently on Mars, wherever they're raised.
It's all obsolete. Lockie, thank you so much. I will see you next week. I'll see all you guys in a week's time for the next PEP 226. Till then, stay peppy.
See you next week, Rattus.
You're safe.